once. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, I've been informed that the whipper has agreed that there won't be motions. Therefore, we shall proceed with the motion as printed on the other paper. Chief Whip. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson.
Let me observe, Honorable Labuskafu.
Point of order. I want to, through you, Chair, would like to know if Honorable Nyambe is now asking, making apologies to Honorable Julius on his personal attack, or yesterday in the House, or why is he sitting next to Honorable Julius now?
No, honorable members, that's not a point of order, therefore I would not carry it. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I move that the Council knows the notice of intervention in Northwest Provincial Government invoked in terms of Section 100 of the Constitution of 1996, as adopted in 1996. Further noting that the intervention affects all departments and establishes an ad hoc committee to inquire into the intervention in Northwest Provincial Government.
On what point are you raising, honorable member?
Chairperson, I rise on a point of order on Rule 2, 54.2. I rise on a point of order that I wrote a letter, and if you allow me, I can give my point of order.
You wrote a letter?
Yes, the point of order is, on Wednesday the 16th of May, President Ramaphosa tabled a notice of intervention in terms of Section 101 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996. This notice failed to include a memorandum explaining the reasons for the intervention as required by the National Council of Provinces Rule 2542. The required memo should contain the reasons why the President and the Interministerial Task Team, led by the Minister in the Presidency, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Dr. Dlamini Zuma, would like to place the Northwest Province government under administration. Neither the required memorandum nor the specific reasons for the intervention and the extent of the assumption of responsibility has been included in the notice. The Fourth Parliament's legacy report was clear that interventions should only be used for administrative reasons and not political reasons. The NCOP and the constitutional procedure cannot be abused in a political battle between the President and Premier Supra Mahumapelo. Therefore, notwithstanding the substantive reasons as to which the NCOP Select Committee, or for that matter an ad hoc committee, would deal with a national intervention in a province as a whole, the President's notice of intervention is invalid, unlawful and unconstitutional. Therefore, I hereby request that you declare the notion of intervention invalid. Alternatively, request the required memorandum explaining reasons for the intervention should be provided by the President and the Interministerial Task Team, and that the draft resolution of today's order paper be removed accordingly until all legal and constitutional requirements have been fulfilled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pity that I didn't have the benefit of the contents of what we are going to raise. But procedurally, in accordance with Rule 71, we should have allowed the Chief Whip to present the motion, and then in accordance with Rule 71, again, provinces would have been allowed an opportunity to make their declarations. And therefore, you are then referring to a letter that you wrote. And I would therefore request you to allow the Chief Whip to present the motion as printed on the order paper, and then we'll allow provinces to make their declaration of vote if they so wish.
Procedure, as I've explained in the last paragraph, has not been fulfilled. So therefore, I rise on point of order because I cannot allow the motion to be read and then do a declaration on the selection of an ad hoc committee, because I don't agree with that. I won't vote on that. My motion is on the procedure that is incorrect, because the only thing that has been ACT'd, Chairperson, and I will show it to you. The only thing that has been ACT'd is a letter. In the letter, the President refers to Section 101B, which is correct, but Section 101B states that they must give reasons. And Rule 254 says there must be, and I will read it to you, Chair. Rule 245 says the notice must be accompanied by a memorandum explaining the reasons for the intervention.
No, Honorable Labaskagni, I'm making a ruling now, and I've called on the Chief Whip to continue with the presentation or the reading of the motion as printed on the order paper. Chief Whip, can you continue?
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy
Can I take Honorable
Chairperson.
Kaula?
Deputy Chair.
Can I just hear out Honorable
Honorable
Kaula?
Chairperson, thank you. Can you please do us a favor, Chair, and speak to the microphone?
I cannot. Is it on this thing? So you can hear me? Or it's only Honorable Kaula? Okay, may the Honorable Chief Whip continue with the reading of the motion. Can this be adjusted, please?
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. I move that the Council notes the notice of intervention in the Northwest Provincial Government invoke in terms of Section 100 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. 2, further noting that the intervention affects all the departments in the province, and 3, establishes an ad hoc committee to A, inquire into the intervention in the Northwest Provincial Government in terms of the council rules and the Constitution. B, exercise those powers as set out in the council rules that may assist in carrying out its tasks. C, consist of 11 members of the National Council of Provinces and alternates, and report to the House as required by the Constitution. I so move, Deputy Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. As there's no speakers list, I shall now put the question, and the question is that the motion be agreed to. Honorable Betty?
Order. The Honorable Labaskagni to have waited until the Chief Whip made the announcement. Now, Chairperson, to read Section 101, you need to read it with Section 254. And again, if you look at what was ATC'd, it is very clear. Whenever the National Executive intervenes in a provincial executive in terms of Section 101B of the Constitution, the cabinet member responsible for provincial affairs must submit a written notice of the intervention in the council within 14 days before the intervention. The notice must be accompanied by a memorandum explaining the reasons for the intervention. Now, Chairperson, we still haven't got the memorandum.
I think I made a ruling on that. I made a ruling on that. And the ruling is that the Chief Whip must continue, and then I am now at a point where I'm saying, the motion be agreed to, and therefore, on the basis of Section 71 or Rule 71, I shall first allow provinces an opportunity to make their declaration of vote if they so wish. Is there any province that wishes to make a declaration of vote? Is there any province that wishes to make a declaration of vote? Western Cape, honorable members, order. Western Cape wishes to make a declaration of vote. Can I hear?
And all of a sudden, all the other provinces will make a declaration of vote as well. Honorable Chair, as I already said, and I first raise on a point of order again. The order is wrong. We cannot continue with a vote. Why? The reason for it to vote on is not clear. The rule states that there must be a memorandum explaining why we have to put in an ad hoc committee. We don't have that memorandum. So, my declaration is, before this House goes into a vote, they have to provide us into a vote to decide that an ad hoc committee should be established to do the work as it's been explained in the rules and in the Constitution. We need to be provided by the memorandum explaining the reasons for the intervention and that the draft resolutions of today's order paper be removed accordingly until all legal and constitutional requirements have been fulfilled. I cannot do a declaration on the vote because according to us, the vote cannot take place. Thank you.
Okay, so that's not a declaration. Is there any province that wishes to make a declaration? Is there any province that wishes to make a declaration? Because I heard Western Cape, and I allowed Western Cape to make a declaration of vote. Now, during the declaration of vote, therefore declared that it's not a declaration of vote. It's fine. Agreed to. Any other province? Northwest?
Chair, as the Northwest, we want to rise and support the motion as presented by the Chief Whip. We want to...
Order, honorable members. Honorable members, can you allow the Northwest to make their declaration of vote?
We are of the view, Chair, that the intent and the purpose as submitted by the memorandum by the President seeks to resolve issues of administration, and we therefore as the Northwest want to support it because in all material times, the national and the central government must always have its hand on the pulse of the provincial government, on all other governments that are falling within these other spheres. And we therefore as Northwest support the motion, and we would argue that if there's no other motion, we should proceed to voting.
Thank you very much. Is there any other province? Any other province? Okay. In the absence of any other province, then we shall proceed with the voting on the question. I shall do so in an alphabetical order, but before I do so, I need to ascertain as to whether all delegation heads are present in the House. Are they? Okay. Then I would proceed. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape support, Chair.
Free State?
Free State support.
Gauteng?
Gauteng agrees.
KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal yayisekela sonke nje.
Limpopo?
Limpopo yayitheha yayidumela.
Mpumalanga?
Mpumalanga support, sir.
Northern Cape?
Northern Cape support.
Northwest?
We support, Chair.
Western Cape?
The Western Cape abstain and will support when we have all the documentation, but now we abstain.
8 provinces voted in favor. Therefore, I declare that the voting is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of consolidated report of the Provincial Week, which took place from 9 to 13 October 2017 under the theme, Advancing Our Collective Efforts to Creating Work Opportunities for Our People.
Honorable the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chairperson and honorable members of this august House, distinguished special delegates, fellow South Africans. We are assembled here to reflect on the report of our important flagship program, the Provincial Week, which took place, as indicated, 9 to 13 October. This Provincial Week was under the theme, Advancing Our Collective Effort to Creating Work Opportunities of Our People. We chose this theme because among the most critical tests of the legitimacy of parliaments in the 21st century is the political will and capacity to push back frontiers of unemployment, poverty, and inequalities that continue to define the lives of the majority of our people. We must take this opportunity to honestly assess whether it is making impact in changing the lives of our people by identifying the gaps, both in terms of conceptualization, implementation, and the outcomes within the evolving context of our political landscape. We should do this mindful that critical to the strategic objective of the Provincial Week is to enable the NCOP to have its hands firmly on the pulse of our evolving system of intergovernmental relations. The 53rd National Conference of the ANC points out, and I quote, to deepen the national democratic revolution and accelerate service delivery and development, we need a stronger developmental state and a more integrated cooperative governance system. The more we build developmental state, the more we create conditions for a more integrated cooperative governance system, close quote. The Constitution locates the NCOP at a cutting edge of our evolving system of intergovernmental relations in South Africa. NCOP, as former President Mbeki argues, critical to the assessment of whether it is effectively and successfully discharging its constitutional obligations, we should pose, among others, key questions as posed. Has the NCOP ensured that national policy is designed in a way that enables it to be implemented at provincial level? Is the NCOP actively engaged in finding out what difficulties provinces are experiencing in implementing national policy and fulfilling their constitutional obligations? Is the NCOP providing provincial legislatures with opportunity to engage each other and the national government constructively regarding the problems that they have encountered in the implementation of national policy? And lastly, is the NCOP actively engaged in search for solutions to problems common to provinces and local government? Chairperson, I'm confident that we'll concede that one of the defining features of agents of change in society is their permanent discomfort with the status quo. Accordingly, this should consistently compel us not to shy away from posing difficult questions, even about our own choices in terms of how they impact on the lives of our people. Key to this should be a critical and honest re-examination of whether the content of our conversations during the Provincial Week, its methodology, reporting template, and outcomes are responding to these fundamental questions posed by former President Mbeki. In the reporting template, is the reporting template enabling us to sufficiently identify common challenges facing our provinces, emerging pockets of best practices, alternative policy perspective to alert the national government on appropriate interventions to unlock the barriers for service delivery? development and transformation. What kind of actions do we take post these provincial weeks to follow through critical challenges that are faced by provinces? These are among other key questions that we should honestly reflect on in order to make this program more lively and relevant. The 53rd National Conference of the ANC has rightly declared that the current phase of our transition is a phase of radical socio-economic transformation within the evolving global context of deepening levels of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Almost close to half South Africans live in poverty, thus according to various reports by reputable institutions. In this critique of the narrow economist's view of poverty, which is limited to inability to access income as key indicator, according to Said, one of the leading Nigerian political economists, says, and I quote, "Poverty is a policy issue that exists in political domain. Poverty, inequality, and governance are inseparably related because without good governance, bad policy choices will be made. The people will have neither voice nor power, and the economy may likely deteriorate. Similarly, when poverty and inequality persist in a society, it weakens the political process and promotes deficient governance," close quote. This debunks the myth of new liberal paradigm that relegates the task of economic development to the market forces. The resolution of the ANC National Conference on building a democratic developmental state should therefore be understood within the context of failures of market forces alone to drive a sustainable economic growth trajectory. Critical to the democratic character of South Africa's trajectory of a developmental state is to give voice to the aspirations of the masses as the final architects of the future. By working with the people, with and amongst them, we always must understand the extent in which there's a need for urgent change. Members, we debate this report at a time when the World Bank has released yet another report that depicts South Africa as one of the most unequal societies in the world within the ever-escalating levels of poverty and unemployment. These inequalities are defined by gender and race. As former President Mbeki observed in his 2004 State of the Nation address, and I quote, "For the blacks and especially African majority, suddenly a new dawn broke. After these masses had cast their votes, they still had nothing in their stomachs and in their pockets, but they yet had spring in their step because they knew that the new dawn had proclaimed the coming of a bright day," close quote. At the heart of the report of the Provincial Week is a narrative of spatial, racial, and gender dimensions that continue to define South Africa's development trajectory, poverty, unemployment, and inequality. This is not a creation of nature, neither a coincidence of history, but a product of conscious social engineering by successive apartheid white minority regimes over many decades. Honorable Chairperson, to deny the correlation between white privilege and black suffering in South Africa is not only to feed on white supremacy, but a resistance against South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, as equals. According to the 2018 World Bank report titled "Overcoming Poverty and Inequality in South Africa, Assessment of Drivers, Constraints and Opportunities," it says, "Race remains a strong predictor of poverty in South Africa, with black Africans being at the highest risk of being poor. Large families, children, and people in rural areas are especially vulnerable of being in poverty for a very long time," close quote. Despite this gloomy picture of the deepening levels of poverty and inequality in South Africa, 2018 World Bank report credits South Africa's policy trajectory as one of the best to push back frontiers of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. It calls for unity in action across party political lines and between the state and non-state actors behind a common vision. The common vision is articulated in the National Development Plan, which most political parties represented here, wide sections of organized labor, business have endorsed as our collective roadmap. The National Development Plan is unequivocal in its articulation of correlation between governance and poverty, and I quote, "No political democracy can survive and flourish if the masses of our people remain in poverty without land," and I must say, without land, without tangible prospects of a better life. Attacking poverty and deprivation must be the first priority of democratic government. The NDP poses that to raise the living standards of the minimum required level will involve various mechanisms, such as increasing employment, incomes, productivity, as well as through social protection, quality public service. The measure of success of government development policy will be when the lives and opportunities of poorer South Africans are transformed for the better. Close quote. South Africa is rated among few countries among the developing countries with sound policy dimension, which is characterized by stability and responsiveness to developmental imperatives of the 21st century. What continues to remain a challenge is the poor coordination of the implementation of these policies between spheres of government and among sector departments. The success of this flagship program will be measured by the extent of the intervention it makes to address this challenge. The rollout and implementation, for instance, of public works program is the case in point, where this challenge manifests itself more profoundly in some provinces. Exorbitant amounts of funds that are intended to benefit the poor and the unemployed are directed to consultants. There is no evidence of integrated and coordinated mechanism to marshal the resources and expertise within the state. I'm raising this, honorable members, that as we were doing our work, there were glaring challenges and weaknesses that we picked, amidst that there are, of course, pockets of excellence. But I'm making this point that there is no evidence of integrated and coordinated mechanism to marshal the resources and expertise within the state, private sector, and organized labor to advance the vision of NDP. And I'm saying my office as Chief Whip of the NCOP and that of the House of Chairperson for Oversight will conceptualize a monitoring framework to track how select committees integrate issues emanating from provincial week reports as part of our ongoing oversight and robust work that we must do as members of this council. I thank you, honorable members.
Thank you very much, Chief Whip. It looks like this thing. Okay. Honorable Faber. Honorable Faber.
Honourable Chairperson, as the Northern Cape NCOP permanent delegates, we were eager to see what difference our provincial government made to help improve and stimulate economic growth to its full potential in our province. Premier Sylvia Lucas started off by informing us that the provincial government is committed to economic development and working hard to eliminate poverty. It is unfortunate that our Northern Cape province receives a very small part of the equitable share allocation from National Treasury every year. We are thus concerned of the undertaking that was made by the National Executive at taking Parliament to the people in 2012 to give a larger portion of the cake towards the Northern Cape, especially in the DAR region, to revitalise the railway hub by building train coaches, which did not happen. We should condemn and actually imprison President Zuma, the Guptas, and Mr. Brian Molefe for looting from government to inflate the controversial 1,064 locomotive tender to which the Gupta-linked businesses scored from 38 billion to 54.5 billion with this inflators. The inflation of the tender is 16.5 billion. This is according to the report from Transnet just after another 3 board members resigned last week. Then we sit here and wonder why there is no money to start projects that could help economic growth and alleviate poverty. I wonder why. Economic development, tourism, roads and public works, agriculture and rural development made presentations to us. And then it went to witness what was happening on the ground.
Honorable Faber, can you take a seat? Honorable Mteto, on what point are you rising? Can you take your seat, Honorable Faber?
The honorable member is misleading the public. Where did he saw Zuma looting?
I didn't.
Where did he saw Zuma looting the country? He's misleading the public.
Did he say Zuma?
He said Zuma.
Okay, fine. Don't want to be presiding officers by default. I must make a ruling on this. And the ruling is very simple. I didn't pick up exactly what it means, but if Honorable Mteto has got a perception, we will then have to check Hansard and verify exactly what is it that the member said. Okay. Can you continue, Honorable Member?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Well, different departments, as I say, came to present to us, and then it was time to put our feet on the ground. Honourable Stock, all of our colleagues were there. In 2014, we visited Care Winning Farm, and when it was handed over to Mr. Van Bosch, who is a disabled person, the department only now, in 2018, via the CAS program, allocated funds to assist this farmer after 4 years. It is very clear to us that this vulnerable farmer did not receive the support, training, or equipment to be able to be integrated into the economy. We have witnessed this over many years where people receive land, but no real support by government to be able to become successful farmers. The title deeds of this farm will also not be given to this farmer, as according to the MSC, as this ANC government wants to hold on to land. But we hear this opposite slogans every day: give the land back to the people. We cannot allow people to simply become labourers on government land. In the Western Cape, the DA government to the farmer to become an owner in his own right. Then the recycling project visited in the Gauteng was in the same sorrow state as at our previous visit ago. And to be quite frank, Chairperson, this trend of most of the other projects were all failures, wrapped up to look good for us as delegates. Bokwani local municipality has identified goat farming. This could work, but then getting the Kalahari Kit program management to assist, it is challenging. It is common knowledge that this was a disaster program close to Grobler's Hoop that cost government millions of rands for many years, and until this date remains a liability for the Northern Cape province. Why would we ask someone who failed miserably to all of a sudden help with a new similar project? This doesn't make sense, Chairperson. The chicken farm near Warrington received awards at a time when it was financially supported by government. But after the chickens got sold, they didn't get replaced. The money dried up due to competitiveness in the market, as it was said. It went up. I went there 2 weeks ago, and still nothing has changed, Chairperson. There was still no money for these chickens. This project is standing still. The Department of Agriculture showed us a successful pecanut plantation by the community, and they drove off. While myself and Honourable Stock, that is sitting right here, was standing and talking about this beautiful success, the real owner of this farm walked towards us and asked what we are doing on their land. She told us that they planted these trees for the community 14 years ago, and until today there were no community to work on this farm and even to look after these. No community involvement occurred. These are the untold truths being exposed. The one light in the tunnel, I must say, was the grain storage facilities next to the main railway. This project is currently run by DTI and awaits more funding to be able to operate. It is clear that this project is being run under professional supervision and will become a success story in future. Unfortunately, The ANC left the Northern Cape in a mess with their infighting between the Zuma and Ramaphosa factions, as currently seen in Northwest Province. Because of this, it's unfortunate that the poor and unemployed people will suffer the most due to this political instability. I thank you.
Honorable Connie.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable Faber comes here and tag all the permanent delegates of Northern Cape in this house. He must refrain from doing that going forward. And he must, once he...
Honorable Connie, take the order.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. Honorable Connie just referred to Honorable Faber as Faber. You must please call him Honorable Faber. When she came up, she said Faber comes here and what. Thank you.
Well, if that is what she said, let us refer to each other as honorable members. Can you continue, Honorable Faber?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I was not even aware that I referred to the honorable member as Faber, not as Honorable Faber. You know, when people like Honorable Faber touches the issue of land, it's very personal, so it actually affects me. The theme for today's debate is advancing our collective efforts to creating work opportunities for our people. This is appropriate given that the Quarter Labor Force Survey was released by Stats SA 2 days ago. The Quarterly Labor Force Survey is hard proof of how this government, because of the neoliberal economic policies it has adopted, has failed to create working opportunities for our people. I will now tell you about the reality of unemployment in this country. The unemployment rate in Eastern Cape is standing at 46%.
Honorable Connie. Ask Honorable Faber, why are you standing?
Chairperson, just on a correction for Honorable Connie, if we read this, it actually says that the Provincial Week's theme which took place was advancing collective efforts, not the debate.
Honorable Faber, that's not a point of order. You are trying to debate by chance. And I'm not going to allow you to do that.
You know, it's very wrong to disturb a very content debate. The unemployment rate in Eastern Cape is 46%. The unemployment in Mpumalanga is 42.5%. In Northern Cape is 41%. KwaZulu-Natal is 40.6%. And nationally, it stands at 36.7%. While these rates are bad, unemployment rates amongst the youth are even worse. 52% of young people in this country today are unemployed, and that is more than half. The ANC has no right to come here and talk about work opportunities when it has done nothing to create opportunities for our people. Every economic plan it has adopted to gear to the NDP have only served the interest of capital and not the interest of economic development and job creation. And all attempts to boost youth unemployment, from the youth wage subsidy to the current youth unemployment service initiative, have failed and will continue to fail. I will therefore use this opportunity to educate the ANC, but the DA can also provide an ear on how jobs can be created. If government is genuine about job creation, it must... Chairperson, I'm struggling to hear myself because the honorable member on my left is drowning me. Of the DA.
It's a genuine, honorable member, it's a genuine appeal by Honorable Connie. Yeah. Hence I'm saying it's a genuine.
It's a pity that you are refusing to listen.
Honorable Connie, you appealed and requested my intervention.
Yes, Chair. Please.
I'm trying to intervene.
Please intervene, Chair. Please intervene.
Order, honorable members. Order. Honorable Kathy, can we just give her a chance? Honorable Mpambo Sibugwan, I'm going to call you by names now.
Please, Chair. Thank you.
I'm going to call you by names. Can you allow the member to continue? Let's not drown her. Okay. Can you continue, please?
Thank you, Chairperson of the Northern Cape. By taking ownership of the country's mineral resources with which we are so blessed, we will be able to establish state-owned mining
Honorable Connie, can you
companies.
Take a seat? Can you take a seat?
With due
What
respect,
point are you raising,
yeah,
Honorable?
the point of
The
order, Chair.
energy from the DA is unnecessary, you know.
Chairperson, yes, on a point of order, I just wanted to check through you. Did the speaker at the podium insinuate that the DA must educate the ANC on job creation? Is that what she said? Just wanted clarity, sir, through you.
I don't think that's what she meant. Can you
You
continue?
don't think that's what
Honorable?
she meant?
That is not what I said, and I will never even utter such words. But more importantly, taking control of country's mineral resources will lay groundwork for beneficiation and the development of productive forces of our country, so that we are no longer reliant on mineral extraction to fuel our economy, but can diversify it and develop it. Minerals and metal beneficiation will create a stable and sustainable labor-absorptive industry which will see our country become industrialized. Industrialization cannot be limited to mineral resources. However, it must lay the basis for industrialization of the entire country so that we produce what we consume, from everything to tables to complex machinery. But this process of industrialization cannot happen in isolation, and government will need to take the necessary steps to protect our industries. Today, across the world, we are seeing countries, both developed and developing, protecting their countries' industries. We are seeing tariffs on aluminium and steel imports to the US, which will see jobs lost in this country. If we want to industrialize our country, we will need to do the same and subsidize our own industries and have tariffs on imported goods so that South Africans' goods are competitively priced in this country and South Africans can buy and consume them. If government had done this, we would have poultry industry today and would not see our poultry industry collapse because of cheaper US imports, with thousands of South Africans losing their jobs. These are just basic policies government must adopt if the government really wants to create jobs, opportunities for our people. But if it continues with the same neoliberal economics it has adopted and implemented for the past 24 years, nothing will change. The unemployment figures will only get worse. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Damakhouse. Can we continue the debate?
Thank you, Deputy Chair, fellow delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This is an era in which the ruling party, the African National Congress, is now unapologetically introducing the radical economic transformation meant to change the structure, systems, infrastructure, development plans, institutions, patterns of ownership, management and control of the economy in favor of all South Africans, especially the poor. This is also the time that we as government, both the ruling party and the opposition, need to change the form, the structure and character of our debates. Our debates must be advisory, encouraging and motivating, because we are all working towards a common goal of making South Africa a better place to live in. Our dissenting voices in this debate must aim at a nation building and promote a better life for all. The message to ourselves should be, and I quote, "We acknowledge that there are things that we did right and there are things that we did wrong," close quote. Bipolar concepts must teach us that always where there is white, there is black. Also where there is right, there is wrong. Or also where there is beautiful and handsome, there is also ugly. And where there is good, there is bad. This is the reality that we can't run away from. With our engagement with the provinces in 2017, we saw good things and bad things. Allow me to focus on the portraits that we saw in the Free State province. Let me start with the Vredefort Dome in the Free State. Vredefort Dome is an initiative of Fezile-Dabi District Municipality and the Department of Environmental Affairs and Tourism in the Free State. The following were the snapshots at this project during the visit by NCOP members. 1, arts and crafts stalls were not completed. The construction of the restaurant was incomplete, and outdoor arena was incomplete. The Free State Legislature take responsibility for all the mishaps that occurred in the project. However, it is important to note that although projects went not properly monitored, the project success was also constrained by the factors such as the withdrawal of Wits University from the project, withdrawal of the implementing agent from the project, site being split between the two provinces, and the classification of the project as an on-risk site by UNESCO. 2, let me touch on Kroon Park Holiday Resort, Kroonstad. This is a project initiated by Mutaka local municipality in Kroonstad, Free State province. The challenges which were identified in the project during the visit by NCOP members are the following. There was no money for marketing the project. There was poor access control. There was a problem with water pollution. There was no support by government departments, and no financial support from district and local municipalities. Poor oversight mechanisms were employed by the Free State Provincial Legislature in this project. It is anticipated that with the new budget allocations for 2018-19, the Department of Environmental Affairs and Tourism in the Free State will take steps to close these gaps in this project. Let me touch on achievements. During the NCOP visit in the Free State province, Virginia Mega Poultry Project and Power Road Parts Garage in Velkom were identified as the most successful projects in the province. Virginia Mega Poultry. Good things about the project are the following. 1 boiler house produces 40,000 chickens. 50,000 million has been spent in the project to date. 8 boiler houses will operate in the future. Finances are managed by PricewaterhouseCoopers. Beneficiaries are trained by UAFs. Beneficiaries are paid a stipend of 2.5 so far. 2, Power Road Parts Mega Garage Project. Services rendered by this project are the following. Selling of batteries, selling of tires, wheel alignment, wheel balancing. Above all, this project is 100% female-owned and is completely successful. A clinic was visited, and it was non-functional by then. And that was a clinic built by Sasol firm as a donation. As we speak now, the clinic is functional with 5 bursaries for students doing medicine in the UAF's University of the Free State. Now, in conclusion, allow me to quote Barack Obama when he said, "When we are met with cynicism and doubt, and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed. That sums up the spirit of a people, and we will say, yes, we can." I thank you.
What about Christina?
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Makue. observing, I know that what concerned you. But I'm sure when it goes on record, it will be corrected. But I could see you were concerned about something that I heard as well. Okay, fine. Honorable Mtetwa, can you continue the debate?
Chairperson, Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. Provincial Week to the province of KwaZulu-Natal and the King Cetshwayo district. This took place at the 9th to the 13th of October 2017 in the year that was declared by the African National Congress as the year of the Commandant-in-Chief of Umkhonto weSizwe, O.R. Tambo, was a South African anti-apartheid and revolutionary who served as a president of the African National Congress from 1962 to 1991. The greater number of our people, both black and white, should and will rally around the banner of democracy. The alternative, democratic power will get ever strong as the illegitimate apartheid power weakens permanently and irreversible. O.R. Tambo closing speech, 4th December 1989 Arusha Conference. This district was named after great-father of Isilo Samazulu esibusayo, Sikhathi noZulu, King Cetshwayo, who led the Zulu warriors in the Battle of Isandlwana, the battle where the Great Britain lost to African warriors. The Battle of Isandlwana remains the single greatest defeat of the British Army at the hands of the African Army. This occurred in KwaZulu-Natal. The Battle of Isandlwana is a pride as it reminds us that our ancestors did not quietly accept colonization and were not easily defeated. They fought and even defeated the European colonizers, as the case of the King Cetshwayo forces. The delegation met with the Premier and the Provincial Executive to receive a briefing on employment creation initiative in the province, including short and long-term projects aimed at fostering employment and economic development. We were briefed by the about the provincial master plan, which enables the province to optimize and monitor employment creation initiative. The plan enables the province to tackle the poverty, unemployment, and inequity. The master plan is thus integrated with other initiatives such as Operation Vola, Black Industrialist Development Program, and the Poverty Eradication Master Plan. The vision of the province is that by the 2035, KwaZulu-Natal will be a prosperous province with a healthy, secure, and skilled population living with a dignity and harmony, and acting as a gateway to Africa and the world. The vision has been cascaded to strategic goals and objectives with indicators and targets to measure progress, focus intervention, and drive performance. One of the main strategic goals is inclusive economic growth. The province has been able to meet job creation target, and there is growth in the number of new small contractors. The SMMEs program is yielding positive results as it is displayed growth. Other goals include environmental sustainability, which is meant to enhance ecosystem services and response to climate change, as well as spatial equity, which seeks to ensure integrated land management use across the province, ensuring equitable access to goals and services. Over 900 permanent jobs were created over 900 permanent jobs were created at the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Over 1,000 women and over 3,500 youth were employed at the Department of Human Settlement. The Department of Economic Development and Tourism, Environmental Affairs created 2,859 jobs under SMME funding. Over 1,300 jobs were created through training and cooperatives and SMMEs. And more than 1,000 bursaries were issued through the Department of Tourism and Environmental Affairs. The Department of Arts and Culture reported over 500 full-time employment, and 80 interns were absorbed in the 2017-2018 financial year. The high-level overview of departmental employment has been reported, with departments such as the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development having created more than 1,500 jobs. A 5-year turnaround strategy has been developed, and this strategy intends to carry out infrastructure improvement so the state can become rainforest accredited and then export its tea to move lucrative overseas market. An upgrade of a black and green tea for factories must be done. Allocated currently unemployment, seasonal workers, tea fields, so that they farm themselves as minimum farmers, as individuals, as cooperatives. Expand productivity and leaf harvesting by introducing handheld harvesting machines. In investment over the 5-year plan will increase productive capacity of the project and assist in contribution positively growth in the agricultural sector. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish you could have been on your feet. Because if you raise your hand, I don't know whether if you are calling for the attention or you are bringing something to the attention of a service officer or so. But if you're on your feet, it means that you are...
Honorable Chair, I had long had my hand up, but it didn't look on this side of the Western Cape, which is a usual case with you. Honorable Chair, I wanted to take you to note that Honorable Mteto was speaking and has no time allocation, and is it because he's coming from Zuma's province that he's getting a special treatment, and the time is not allocated on the speaker's list? I wanted to ask that because it's a free time with him.
No, No, I don't want to get
There's
into
no
that.
time allocation on the speaker's list.
He's left with 1 minute 45 seconds.
Okay.
On this clock, he's left with 1 minute
But I wanted
45
to
seconds.
bring to your attention it was a free time. There was no.
Okay, fine. Honorable Majuba, can you please continue the debate?
Yeah, thanks, Honorable David Chairperson and honorable members. Let me pass my sincere greetings to everyone in this august house. We are humbled to be afforded this opportunity during the Workers' Month, where we are dedicating ourselves to the selfless struggles waged by workers for our freedom and committing to pursue the ideals of workers' unity to overcome the socio-economic legacy of apartheid. The main theme of this occasion, which is advancing our collective efforts to creating work opportunities for our people, resonates well with the ANC's 2018 January 8 statement, which celebrates 100 years of Dr. Nelson Mandela and declared 2018 as the year for renewal, unity, and jobs. House Chair, let me start by quoting one of the revered wealth and struggle icons, the first president of the democratic dispensation, Nelson Mandela, where he said, open quote, "As long as many of our people are still in utter poverty, as long as children live under plastic covers, and many of our people are without jobs, no South African should rest and wallow in the joy of freedom," close quote. Our goal of decent work and sustainable jobs require collective efforts. The NDP Vision 2030 correctly outlines that in order to achieve full employment, decent work and sustainable livelihoods is the only way to improve the living standards and ensure a dignified existence for all South Africans. We can reduce the unemployment rate to 6% by 2030. It will require leadership, difficult political choices, and effective implementation. It will require a rebalancing and realignment of key areas of government policy alongside some reprioritization in economic policy. Mpumalanga province is one province hit by a high level of unemployment, especially the youth. We are seen as an agricultural hub and industrial province. However, it is very worrying to note the unacceptable youth unemployment in the province, which is about to reach 73%, and it mainly affects rural women. Guided by the new growth path, much focus to improve the lives of our people must be in agriculture, mining, tourism, and industrialization of the province. Agriculture contributed above all other economic sectors in the 2 quarters of 2017 to gross domestic product. 3 industrial projects have been approved for the Black Industrial Program, and all of these projects are in the agricultural sector. The establishment of the international fresh produce market in the province will go a long way to contribute in sustainable job opportunities to the people of Mpumalanga, in particular Ehlanzeni region. The establishment of special economic zones will indeed create job opportunities to the downtrodden communities. Overarching policy intent of SEZS is to further national government's industrial development as espoused in the NDP and places the economy on an inclusive and sustainable growth trajectory. This will therefore not only give black entrepreneurs opportunity to be managers and employees, but to own and create more jobs. The establishment of the University of Mpumalanga is one of the milestones achievements by the ANC-led government, which has become a game changer in the efforts of the province to position itself a home of the agrarian revolution in the country. We insist that the curriculum of the new university in Mpumalanga should reflect the real economic needs of our people and respond to the developmental agenda of the nation. The Muloto road upgrade and rail construction is amongst the mega projects targeted to create millions of jobs for the communities of Nkangala region, in particular Thembisile and Dr. J.S. Moroka. The estimated once-off employment opportunities sums to 90,000 jobs through this project and about 40,000 sustained employment opportunities. All spheres of government must work together to make this long-deferred dream a reality. Young people must be trained towards possible skills needed for the project in order to realize the targeted opportunities. We are delighted that at least 674 employment opportunities were created at the Highveld Industrial Business Park. The challenge which is worrying is the lack of necessary skills in our youth to contribute to economic and job opportunities that will change the lives of our people. We have a task to commit our energies to the objectives of the NDP in reducing the unemployment rate to at least 6%. Our provincial governments must work very closely with private sector, especially for mega projects, and to create jobs for our people. Since our democratic breakthrough, a lot has been done, however, much is still expected. This will only happen if we join hands as nation-loving people beyond our race, gender, or political affiliation to make South Africa a better country. Amongst other challenges, the following are at the core of escalation of the triple challenges: the lackluster approach to deal with corrupt activities in both private and public sector, lack of support to the emerging farmers and SMMEs, lack of skills development in the main field of economic growth in specific provinces. With all provinces and key ministries, we cannot fail to provide new paths for our zeal to defeat the triple challenges facing our people. At the center of all these issues raised, it is the land question. Being able to take land back to the owners and will help us in paying more focus in utilizing it for various reasons to change the lives of the majority. Amongst other key issues, the following recommendations would be considered: the industrialization of the provincial economy in order to create sustainable jobs, to invest in the development skills which will respond to strategic growth pillars of the province and country at large, local beneficiation and encouragement of cooperative sector participation in mainstream economy. Efforts should be made to ensure the approval of black industrial project is spread across the country, irrespective of rural or urban setup of the region. Collective approach on the fight against poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Socio-economic initiatives linked with land use programs. As I close, these interactions and visits to provinces must not be in vain. Working with the national government, we must declare war on poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Poverty and unemployment are just weapons of mass destruction. As we prepare for the fourth industrial revolution, we need to be prepared, otherwise the level of unemployment will never be reduced. If capital has an aptitude to invent new technologies, there must be ability and keenness to end unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Matuba. Honorable Luana, can you continue the debate?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. the Chief Whip of the House, honorable members, let me extend the greetings from the province of the Eastern Cape this afternoon. Chairperson, we assembled here at the backdrop of the recent massive loss of life and casualties in one of the oldest and ongoing conflict between Israeli and Palestine. We wish to join hands and voices of all peace-loving nations of the world in condemning the actions of the US-sponsored Middle East violent conflict. Honorable members, we further wish to lower the flag for all those eminent South Africans, like Mr. Sam Zima, the late, whose life recently laid to rest. Taking Parliament to the people in the Eastern Cape, Chairperson, I was lucky to be part of a follow-up visit under the leadership of Honorable Makwe, where a rigorous oversight one could attest to. Yesterday, as I was listening to debates, I was reminded that President Mandela in May 2002 had this to say: "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." As members of different houses of lawmaking in South Africa, the above has to at all times find expression in the way we conduct our lives. Honorable members, our development programs pursuant to egalitarian society would always take a knock and subsequently getting undermined if we left entirely in theater of market forces. In the sphere and fora of intergovernmental relations, the IGR, the Eastern Cape Province has been advocating for the relook of the current funding formula in the allocation of equitable share. At the center of it, we know it is people, and of course, premised on the notion of development follows people. Honorable members, in what I'm introducing right now, the issue of equity and redress should make us to take a deliberate effort to tilt it in favor of poor provinces. It is, of course, as I said, Honorable Chair, that development follows people. But if we do not constantly remind ourselves of the historical injustice, given the wars that were fought, wars of resistance, deprivation and colonialization, and all that is related to it, and simply go to the allocation as determined by the current formula, Indeed, history will judge us as unfavorable if we continue, rather, it will judge us unfavorable if we continue to subject public purse benefits to perpetuate the current structural imbalances. The IDZ in the Eastern Cape continue to grow as economic growth points in which we see the attraction of foreign direct investments. Automotive sector, with the woes of continuous job losses, remains second economic driver after public sector in the province of the Eastern Cape. Other provincial state-owned enterprises contribute in excess of 2.5 billion in the provincial fiscus. Those are signs, Chairperson, that we do have a launching pad in which we should build upon to drive economic development and create jobs and more sustainable jobs in the province. The agricultural sector remains and is seen as a catalyst in job creation. And we see it as not only a catalyst in that level, but also on issues of food security. And the province is working very hard to drastically increase the fiscal allocation in the sector so that we accord it the catalytic part that we are saying it is. In the area of young people, we are working very hard to ensure that the partnership between the Eastern Cape Province and the Department of Military Veterans does contribute in the area of skilling on a number of areas amongst the young people. I wish, Chairperson, to say before I step down that indeed we welcome the report as was welcome yesterday, but also I'm putting a stamp to say we will continue to partner with the NCOP in ensuring that the areas that were also mentioned as areas of concern in your visit to the province is indeed addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kaula, continue the debate.
Honorable Chairperson, the first day of the KZN Delegations Provincial Week of 9 to 13 October 2017 was unfortunately marred by the storm that ripped through Durban and some areas of the province, causing havoc. Be that as it may, the delegation received a briefing by the Honorable Premier of the province on the first day in Pietermaritzburg. Some of the issues raised by the Honorable Premier in his briefing were: 1, high levels of unemployment in the province and a remarkable high number of social protection grants recipients as a result. 2, human resource development challenges in the TVET colleges. The Premier raised a concern that TVET colleges in the province are not properly resourced with adequate and properly qualified lecturers. 3, he raised a strong need for government at national level to tighten and strengthen the programs aimed at enforcing intergovernmental cooperation and relations, which he said is very poor. 4, There is a big question mark about how SETAs operate. The province raised a concern that while SETAs are government funded, it is illogical that when they provide services to the province, they still expect to be paid for such services by provincial and local government. 5, the Premier indicated that the province would like to strengthen its capacity through Ithala Bank, a brainchild of Umntwana wakaPhindangene. 6, there is also a big concern in respect of the political killings in the province and why these moves are not detected on time by the National Intelligence Agency of the country. The site visits conducted by the delegation include visit to Ndingwe Estate, inspection of the regraveling of D1572, visit to Kaleka Cooperative School Furniture Factory, visit to Luamba Community Project in Tambanana, visit to Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone. Kaleka Cooperative is an example of the very few cooperatives that are succeeding. The 2016 study on cooperatives reflects only a 12% success rate of cooperatives in KZN. Kaleka is led by a very enthusiastic chairperson, Mrs. Phumzile Ntuli, with a board of 5 directors and employs a staff of 20 personnel. Another highlight is Ndingwe Estate in Nkandla, which was established by Umntwana wakaPhindangene in 1987. Ndingwe Estate produces tea that gets supplied to the international markets and employs a permanent staff of 74 and seasonal staff of 282. This estate is a very good example of a leader who puts the interests of the people first instead of putting his own ego as a priority. Thank you, Shenge. However, the high production costs, global competition, and the dominance of the tea packers are of late threatening the expansion and viable sustainability of this good project. The Honorable MEC promised to give its support. The disappointing site visit that the KZN delegation experienced was in the Sivananda Luamba Rural Project in Tambanana. The project was initiated by the KZN government in 2009. Initially, this project was funded to the tune of a combined figure of 17.4 million and 8.9 million by both government and the private sector. A multi-purpose center was established. The Department of Human Resources budgeted 100 million towards the project. The Department of Social Development created an ECD and many other things. The Department of Agriculture provided 8 cows, 1 bull, 2 young calves. To date, these projects have collapsed. Only the Department of Health is functioning. The cows have either died or disappeared, the tractors have disappeared, funds have disappeared, the project manager has disappeared. And when we were there, the people who were supposed to be the beneficiaries appealed to the NSOP to assist them trace these funds. This is seemingly another Friede Farm story. I thank you, Chairperson. Nyathokoza.
Honourable Chairperson and fellow South Africans, last year in October, we spent a week in Gauteng evaluating government's effectiveness in funding budding entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, in spite of governments providing vast amounts of funds to assist, the success rate is small. At the Tusong Business Service Centre, the average success rate was 20%. The Business Place SME Hub in Soweto had a dismal 3% success rate. This shows government's failure in not delivering on their promises of creating job opportunities. We found that these entrepreneurs were not being correctly evaluated, nor were they receiving sufficient business support, neither was funding timeously released, placing huge strain on businesses that need to find other financial ways to survive until the funding is eventually released. Simply providing financial support does not guarantee success. Yet, the much-needed transfer of business skills appears to be lacking. Chairperson, unemployment fuels poverty and inequality. And with 9.5 million people currently unemployed, 4 out of every 10 South Africans live below the poverty line. And with the expanded definition of the unemployment rate at 36%, this means 4 out of 10 are unemployed, and of them, 66% are between 15 and 24 years old. This government loves to throw money at a problem and then believes it will disappear. Just like the chairperson of the NYDA, Sifiso Motsweni, who earns 1.2 million rand a year, his deputy 1.1 million a year, and yet he has the audacity to state that his budget of 440 million rand is not enough. Because why? A third of this budget goes to salaries. Chairperson, how many effective and profitable businesses have risen from this 440 million rand? Rockler, one of the South African companies we visited, has developed DIY waterless VIP panel toilets where the waste turns into compost and it can be erected easily by the community, creating job opportunities. A DA government would make use of such innovative ideas to change communities, especially in the Eastern Cape. This is why the DA's economic policy is aimed at creating an environment which is attractive and easy to start a business by redressing the legacy of the past and growing the economy by 8%. A DA government would do the following. We would remove all red tape obstacles to business, establish a national venture capital fund to provide access for startup capital, establish effective small business incubators in partnership with the private sector. One-stop opportunity centers will assist small businesses with all legal processes. Opportunity cards would give small business owners subsidized access to training and business support services. And breaking up government tenders would be essential, breaking them into smaller contracts which will allow small businesses to compete for tenders and get a foot in the door. A DA government will create 1 million new businesses within 10 years under a DA government, creating at least 5 million jobs through a youth wage subsidy targeted at young and low-skilled job seekers between 18 and 29, benefiting 423,000 young people. Apprenticeship wages, allowing businesses to hire young, first-time employees. A government internship program hiring 18,000 interns on 6 months contracts, bridging the study-work divide and equipping recent graduates with valuable professional knowledge and skills. Establishing job zones with strong investor incentives, such as a 5-year income tax holiday for all new investors, no taxes on production inputs or capital goods, no value-added taxation, no freight taxes on the transportation of raw, secondary, or finished goods, allowing foreign-owned companies to repatriate all profits without taxation, and the duty-free import of machinery, goods, and raw materials. It's possible, you might laugh. In the Western Cape, unemployment is the lowest of all provinces at 22%, where the others range between 34% and 46%. It is only the DA that can and will implement a total change, as together we will create job opportunities, realizing one South Africa for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chiro. Honorable Chiro.
thanks, Honorable Chair, the Chairperson of National Council of Provinces, Chief Whip, honorable members, official and guests. Good afternoon. We are deliberating on the outcome of the Provincial Week, which took place on the 9th to the 13th October in 2017. The Limpopo program focused on Vembe and Waterberg district. The focus was on economic development and job creation. Honorable Chairperson, as the representatives of the provincial legislature, we jointly participated in the monitoring job initiative programs to create quality jobs for the people of Limpopo and South Africans at large. The Limpopo legislature, in its endeavor to strengthen public participation, monitoring and oversight role, hosted the Workers' Parliament 6 days ago, affording workers' federations mainly to deliberate on the jobs initiatives programs and the progress so far. The economic pillars of Limpopo province are agriculture, mining, and tourism. The two visited districts are key participants in these economic activities. They are well-known producers of fruits such as mango, avocados, bananas, and so forth, are mostly produced from Vembe district in the Limpopo province. The challenge is that people in these areas are still living in poverty. We embarked on various project visits in the Vembe and Waterberg district. The visited projects differ from one to the other in many respects, starting from ownership, infrastructure, funding model, level of sustainability, and income generation. In the major projects we visited in the Vembe district was the Venetia mine, with 2 billion total budget in 2017 and employed 360 mine workers. The mine does not have challenges with regard to ownership. It operates in a non-communal land, unlike the majority of mines in the Skukuni district, where I come from. Chairperson, according to the reports we received, the mine is honoring its special labor program. However, it does not satisfy us. Our observation is that the mine seems not focusing more on assisting the local town of Mosina, where it operates, to improve roads, assist in building and renovate local schools. In response to the economic challenges and progress, the briefing by the executive indicates the province unemployment rate is 20.8%, the lowest or the second lowest in the country. They created 32,000 jobs in the second quarter of 2016-17 financial year, which was the highest number of jobs in the country. They further reported that the approval of Mosina Makado as a special economic zone will attract the much needed investment to the province. With regard to agricultural activities, the Limpopo has the highest percentage of households engaged in agriculture at 43.8% when compared to other provinces. The challenge is with the agriculture industrial sector of fruits, vegetables, and nuts are dominated by primary production. The province needs to move with speed towards agro-processing, which is capital intensive and require cutting-edge technology. Another challenge was climate change, drought, floods, pests, livestock, diseases, and so forth. Hon Chairperson, we appreciate the determination and dedication by the NCOP to strengthen oversight work. These efforts are informed by the visionary convictions of our forefathers, amongst them our iconic President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, whom will be celebrating 100 years this year if still alive. That the basic economic policy of the African National Congress is based on the principles and tenets of the Freedom Charter. The ANC opted for a mixed economic which will harness the role of the state, private sector, cooperatives, small and medium enterprises, and the information sector in shaping the growth of the economy. This revolutionary task requires an active, interventionist, and capable state that takes decisive action to effect radical economic transformation. It is our assertion that the country needs a private sector that acts in national interest and contributes the attainment of national goals of radical poverty, unemployment, and inequality. Ka segagesho, ba re phala dia mona marula dia tloga. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Motara, can you continue the debate?
Deputy Chairperson, Deputy Minister Patekile Olemisa, honorable members, respected guests, ladies and gentlemen. We undertook the Provincial Week in October 2017 under the theme, Advancing Our Collective Efforts to Creating Work Opportunities for Our People. We did so because we are aware that despite several interventions to address the legacy of apartheid in our country, our nation is still gripped by disconcerting levels of poverty and inequality. Deputy Chairperson, when addressing the Global Campaign for Action Against Poverty in 2005, the late President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, revolutionary stalwart of our movement, said, and I quote, "Massive poverty and obscene inequality are such terrible scourges of our times, times in which the world boasts breathtaking advances in science, technology, industry, and wealth accumulation, that they have to rank alongside slavery and apartheid as social evils," close quote. As expressed by the Reconstruction and Development Program in 1994, and I quote, "No political democracy can survive and flourish if the masses of our people remain in poverty, without land, without tangible prospects for a better life. Attacking poverty and deprivation must therefore be the first priority of a democratic government." The NDP, which has as its nexus the arc aim of eliminating poverty and reducing inequality by 2030, states that to decisively reduce inequality and lift more people out of poverty, more people needed to work. For us as the ANC, it is now clearer that in order to deepen democracy and build a more inclusive society, South Africa needs to translate political emancipation into economic well-being for all. We need to work tirelessly to change the structure of South Africa's economy in order to address the legacy of abject poverty and inequality that continues to characterize our nation. In giving effect to the commitment to wage a concerted fight against poverty and inequality, we as Gauteng developed the Gauteng City Region Economic Development Plan 2030, which also gives a practical expression to the programs that we have outlined in the Gauteng Economic Development Plan. It expresses our plan to move with decisive speed to address poverty and inequality, particularly joblessness. The Gauteng Economic Development Plan is also a partnership for a sustainable and inclusive economy focused on the Economic Development Plan, which is a blueprint for growth and development in the Gauteng province. The plan is embedded in the NDP and encompasses the 10 pillars of transformation, modernization, re-industrialization, which are a reflection of the NDP in the province. The overview of the EDP puts an emphasis on the notion that Gauteng is not an island or functions in isolation, but is part of the global economy wherein it is also dependent on foreign investment. It also has enablers such as infrastructure investment, skills development, and export development. To achieve the growth and development in the province, the plan acknowledges the need for partnerships with various stakeholders such as the private sector, academia, civil society, among others. Moreover, as part of Gauteng City Region, the development in the province is focused through its corridors of development. Tshwane is focusing on the automotive sector. Ekurhuleni focuses on the manufacturing. Aerotropolis, jewelry, transport, and logistics. West Rand is focusing on tourism, agriculture, solar energy. Sedibeng is focusing on tourism, agriculture, agro-processing, and Johannesburg is focusing on finance, ICT, services, and pharmaceuticals. Various sectors are prioritized in the province, grouped into manufacturing and services, and to drive such sectors, the government needs to intervene, enable, promote, invest, and lobby. Gauteng as a province has its own key drivers to ensure growth and development, and more importantly, incentives for key sectors or corporates. In implementing the EDP, the emphasis is on partnerships, in particular with the private sector. The partnerships with the private sector seek to develop and transform the economy, looking at the cross-cutting themes such as ensuring African integration, skills development, local production, township economy, black ownership, infrastructure, research, and innovation. Honorable Chairperson, the delegation also had an opportunity to visit a number of projects. Some the Honorable Engelbrecht, for whatever reason, refused to mention. We visited projects that are funded by the DTI under the Black Industrial Project. We saw a number of projects showing how to intervene to decisively address poverty and inequality in the Gauteng province, from manufacturing pet food to manufacturing copper wire from raw material. These are black industrialists who have been supported by the National Department of DTI, and they are a clear case for success when government intervenes directly. Both these businesses, as well as others, employ between them over 100 young employees and are a sure case as an example of industrialization that is going to grow the economy both in Gauteng as well as actively participate globally. The GEP in supporting businesses also responds to 5 themes such as skills development, public-private procurement, township economy, local production, research and innovation. In addition, support is provided to diverse types of cooperatives such as financial, consumer and manufacturing cooperatives. What was also impressive are the various interventions that are intended to strengthen the township economy where the majority of our people in Gauteng live. The revitalization of the township economy is one of the radical interventions to transform, modernize, and re-industrialize our economy. This is one of the signs that we are serious about radical economic transformation and addressing poverty and inequality. The Provincial Week showed us the Gauteng province is hard at work to ensure that townships are turned into thriving business hubs, with all necessary facilities that can host even the biggest meetings and conferences. Gauteng remains the flagship province for celebrating the collective courage and resilience of township entrepreneurs in the midst of severe poverty and unemployment, to build the township economy from minibus taxi associations, spaza shops, hair salons, mechanics, to burial societies, stockfels, savings groups, plumbers, furniture producers, and young people in ICT. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the entire delegation for their hard work and commitment to always make sure that the Provincial Week remains a success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Deputy Minister Olomisa, yes, you welcome him.
Honorable Chairperson, Minister Jeff Khadebe, Deputy Minister Majola, honorable members, thank you for affording me the opportunity to participate in this important debate during the Workers' Month of May 2018. Indeed, creating work opportunities for our people is paramount and definitely needs our collective effort and resolve as a nation. After the government of the ANC came into power in 1994, the 1st of May was declared an official public holiday in South Africa. This day provided an opportunity for South African workers to join the world in celebrating the International Workers' Day. The 1st of May holiday is very significant in the history of the labor movement in South Africa and indeed worldwide, as a day to pay homage to the noble struggle for workers to break free from the chains of oppression, slave wages, and indignity. This is a time when we celebrate international solidarity, the social and economic achievements that workers, labor movements, and progressive governments have made across the world. Honorable members, the struggle for the advancement of the rights of workers in South Africa is well documented. Allow me therefore to quote from the speech delivered by President Ramaphosa during his address at the COSATU May Day celebrations on the 1st of May this year in Port Elizabeth. He said, "As we celebrate this day, let us take time to remember some of the stalwarts that made significant contributions towards advancing the plight of the working people during the early days of the South African Congress of Trade Unions, the Congress of South African Trade Unions, and other progressive trade unions in this country. Those who fought side by side with our liberation movement to liberate our people, amongst them are comrades Moses Kotane, J.B. Marx, Oscar Mpeta, Elijah Bahai, Billy Ne, John Gomomo, Emma Mashinini, and many others." Close quote. We have as a nation adopted a constitution that declares in its preamble that we respect those who have worked to build and develop our country. It recognizes the right of everyone to fair labor practices. It declares that every worker has the right to form and join a trade union, to participate in its activities and programs. It goes on to say every worker has the right to strike. Honorable Chairperson, it is common cause that prior to 1994, the South African labor market was characterized by deep segmentation and oppressive workplace relations. The democratic government introduced a number of initiatives to improve industrial relations. The National Economic Development and Labor Council was formed to facilitate consultation between the social partners on key legislation. This is the same institution that deliberated on the national minimum wage and the proposed amendments to other labor laws that are before Parliament today. NEDLAC remains relevant in assisting us to ensure that our country's labor laws are deracialized, modernized, and extended equally to all workers. Chairperson, allow me to thank the National Council of Provinces also for taking Parliament to the people and making extensive recommendations to Parliament and government. The recommendations will indeed, if implemented, improve the lives of our people on the ground. These recommendations should also be seen within the context of our chosen theme today, advancing our collective efforts to creating work opportunities for our people. The theme is in line with the ruling party's medium-term strategic framework, outcome number 4, that calls on all our departments to work towards inclusive economic growth through decent work. It is therefore my submission that the recommendations can be effectively implemented if we are to do so employing the decent work pillars as adopted by the International Labour Organization and in line with our country's decent work program. Honorable members, decent work has nothing to do with work that involves a suit, a tie, a big office, or a big salary for all. Decent work has more to do with providing workers with a space for social dialogue and information, the right to collectively bargain, the right to a protective work environment, and to earn an income that can sustain livelihoods in exchange for quality and high-level production of goods and services. The decent work pillars could be extended to a number of issues that are observed in the report. As we implement these recommendations, it is vital and remains critical for the local economic development forums, the provincial economic development forums, platforms such as NEDLAC, and provincial leadership structures to continue sharing information and engaging in social dialogue. Social dialogue remains the key in avoiding unnecessary disputes that often result in stoppages of major projects and conflicts driven by jostling for employment opportunities. Social dialogue is the glue that helps us to plan together and consequently realize the development agenda and major projects that can be initiated with spin-offs in employment and the development of our cities and villages. Honorable Chairperson, this should be strengthened by sound intergovernmental relations, the sharing of information, and the conducting of initiatives in a manner that takes all role players and stakeholders on board. Different government departments and parastatals have programs that are aimed at assisting young people and the unemployed to acquire skills, to be provided with counseling, funding, employment schemes, and a range of information that could be useful in improving their livelihoods. Embracing our public service ethos, coupled with a healthy social dialogue, would go a long way in resolving many challenges that we face as a society, including problems related to early childhood development centers, schools, hospitals, and clinics management. Yes, it is true that workers must deliver quality services that meet the expectations of our people. But equally, they must also be heard. They must be provided with the right apparel and safety gear. They must also work in a conducive and safe environment and be remunerated accordingly. Chairperson, it is precisely for this reason that the Department of Labor continues to invest a lot of money in both NEDLAC to enhance social dialogue and the CCMA to resolve disputes in the labor market. These institutions can lend a hand in social dialogue. We have the Labor Policy and Industrial Relations Branch that monitors the performance of the labor market through research and therefore helps us in reviewing and adjusting our laws at regular intervals to maintain industrial peace. We have also programs such as the Public Employment Services that assist work seekers and employers to adjust to changing economic conditions and assist work seekers with registration, selection, counseling, and ultimately placement to employment opportunities. Public Employment Services also manage migration of labor across our borders in consultation with the Department of Home Affairs. Within the Department of Labor portfolio, we also have Productivity South Africa, an entity whose programs include, among others, saving companies in distress from closure. These new schemes, driven by Productivity South Africa and funded by the Unemployment Insurance Fund and the Compensation Fund, are aimed at facilitating entry into employment as well as preventing loss of employment. Thousands of work seekers have been assisted through these initiatives. We also know, Chairperson, that not all employers out there are good Samaritans. We have the Inspection and Enforcement Services Unit, therefore, that is doing its level best to ensure compliance to our labor laws. We continue to close unsafe workplaces and are prosecuting those employers who breach our laws. We also provide 2 safety nets in cases of temporary or permanent loss of employment through either injuries, diseases, dismissals, or workplace closures through the Compensation Fund and the Unemployment Insurance Fund. The 2 funds provide replacement income and serve to cushion workers from poverty. Thousands of workers have benefited from these funds. Our labor laws are aimed at promoting economic growth and ensuring greater equality in employment in terms of race and gender. In 1994, just 34% of working-age Africans were employed. Today, roughly 43% of working-age Africans are employed. In 1994, only 19% of managers and 51% of skilled production workers were African, whereas today the figures stand at around 41% of managers and 77% of skilled production workers, respectively, who are African. Today, there are also encouraging signs in relation to the economy. The economy has started showing positive signs of recovery, with a higher than expected fourth quarter gross domestic product rate in 2017. The employment numbers also turned positive, especially for agriculture, with 81,000 new jobs being
Honourable
recorded.
Deputy Minister, can I recognize Honourable Member? On what point are you standing on?
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I just want to ascertain whether the Deputy Minister will take a question, please.
Are you prepared to take a question on Deputy Minister?
Well, if time allows at the end of my speech.
No, he's not prepared to take a question.
And the economic forecasts are positive, both for higher economic growth and for employment creation. Despite these positive changes, challenges remain. Over the past 10 years, there has been fragmentation of the labor market, with many more workers in casual and temporary work than in full-time employment. Youth unemployment remains persistently high, and access to employment in the labor market is a challenge for many people, especially in the rural areas. Working together within local, provincial, and national government levels, as communities, trade unions, and business, we can easily advance our economy, achieve decent employment, and at the same time overcome challenges in our villages and townships. In closing, I must say I appreciate the in-depth report, Mr. Chairperson, that we have been favored with, that chronicles all manner of challenges faced by our people on the ground. It is incumbent upon us as the leadership of society to confront the challenges narrated in the report as a collective. It is vital that we invoke our intergovernmental mechanisms and adopt an integrated approach to ensure that we do not only overcome these challenges, but also create a conducive environment and a labor market that will yield and create work opportunities for all of our people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. Honorable Chief Whip, Moai, can you conclude the debate?
Okay, thanks very much, Chairperson. And I want to thank members for participating in this report. I think as we indicated that the significance of this is to reflect on our important flagship program of the NCOP under the important theme that put the current context, unemployment, and therefore creating job opportunities is key. As a working parliament, Deputy Chair, we needed to benefit from provincial experiences in job creating initiatives and also to use this opportunity to critique and highlight failures in the system and make concrete submissions on provincial growth and development strategies of provinces. I think the basis of really engaging and ensuring that there's alignment to the NDP is also to deal with the issues that members have raised regarding the NDPs, and also to deal with issues as it relates to the role of higher education institutions in providing focused research as centers for production of knowledge, particularly in areas of primary sectors of our economy, and quite a number of initiatives that our country is engaging on. All of us agree that unemployment is high in our country, and therefore that warrants a very robust oversight by the National Council of Provinces, particularly under the current socio-economic conditions. So we need really to deal with those issues flagged in provincial reports. In many ways, they reflected some weaknesses, particularly regarding project management, that there are areas where there is wastage in the project management, and it's important because project serves as catalyst for development in many ways. So we really need to deal with these issues, because failure to deal with these issues, especially in the current socioeconomic conditions, can really lead to a potential of emergence of populist demagogy in our communities. Instead of genuinely addressing issues of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, people use it to really desperate formations like, of course, the one that has shared platform here, who has lost relevance, seeks to deflect attention in discussing and sharing valuable experiences. I mean, we should really say it. We become so much disappointed when the DA, instead of sharing experience of a province, approach this podium to discuss politics and not even share valuable experiences as a provincial government. It's quite disappointing. And we really need to ensure that we use this platform. It is for valuable reasons why we say the National Council of Provinces is a working platform. It's a working platform because we have to share these valuable experiences. And the NCOP must ensure that there is a discipline of action across spheres of government. We do not engage in these discussions for their own sake. We engage in order to change conditions of living of our people. And I want to thank the Deputy Minister for being part of these discussions, and valuable inputs that were expressed. You are in denial because you are a desperate party. Any opportunity you find, you'll seek to justify your relevance. You do not represent anything in the country of South Africa, DA. Please go and do your homework. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. That concludes the debate. I shall now put the question, and the question is that the report be agreed to. But because of we are dealing with this report in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution, I shall first ascertain whether if there are any provinces that wishes to make a declaration of vote, if they so wish. Is there any province that wishes to do that? In the absence of any, then we shall proceed with the voting, and I will do that in an alphabetical order. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape supports Slal.
Support.
Gauteng?
Gauteng supports.
KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal support, sir.
Limpopo?
Limpopo support.
Mpumalanga?
We support, Chair.
Northern Cape?
Northern Cape support.
Northwest?
Bokoni Bophirima ya Dumalane.
Western Cape?
Support.
All 9 provinces have voted in favor, therefore the report is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. Secretary will read then the second order of the day.
Policy debate on budget vote number 26, Energy, Appropriation Bill B3 of 2018.
Let me welcome the Minister and at the same time call him to introduce the debate.
Thank you, Deputy Chair of the National Council of Provinces, members of the Select Committee on Economic and Business Development, led by the Honorable Chairperson, Mr. Ghai, honorable members of the NCOP, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to table this budget of the Department of Energy. Our department is mandated to ensure the secure and sustainable provision of energy for the socio-economic development of our country. This budget vote is delivered at a time when the growth of the economy is being dampened by the ever-increasing crude oil prices. As a consumer country, we are at the receiving end of these increases as the petrol, diesel, and paraffin prices are affected negatively. How can we use energy to ignite economic growth? We would like the energy sector to contribute as a minimum to a quarter of the target set by our President, His Excellency President Ramaphosa. This can be done through, amongst others, securing strategic stock through investment in new fuels tanks and infrastructure required for our country to become a major shale gas producer, promoting natural gas, by designing and building infrastructure required to transport natural gas and liquefied natural gas, by also driving towards cleaner fuels by improving our refinery assets to meet world-class emission standards, and finally, supporting the transition towards electrification of transport through key strategic partnerships. Our department is appropriated just over 7 billion rand in the 2018-19 financial year. Operational funding to execute this mandate remains a challenge. Our operational budget is allocated 617 million rand, translating to 8.76% of the total appropriation, and the balance of 6.4 billion rand as transfer payments to the department's entities as well as other government agencies, with the substantial budget transferred for the INEP, which is 3.3 billion rand to ESCOM, and non-grid 202 million rand, transfers to municipality 1.9 billion rand, and EDSM municipalities allocated 250 million rand. All of these programs will be implemented within provinces as well as municipalities that are identified in the department's business plans. Electrification. Our marginalized communities are continuing to benefit from our integrated electrification program. Year by year, we are getting closer and closer to realizing our goal of universal energy coverage through modern forms of energy sources. This effort relieves those communities from daily stresses of fending for firewood and the likes, thus improving the socio-economic conditions of a promised better life for all. Energy access has a positive impact on women and our girl children who, when living in electrified homes, have more time to do other more positive things. In the current MTEF, over 17.2 billion rand will be appropriated to fast-track universal electrification coverage. The ENEP program and its implementing agencies have made remarkable progress in increasing access to electricity in our country and have connected more than 7.3 million households between 1994 and April 2018. In this financial year of 2017-18, the non-grid program achieved 16,575 solar home system installations against the target of 20,000 as per the annual performance plan, mainly in rural villages. Since the inception of the non-grid program, we have achieved over 160,000 installations of solar home systems, mainly in the Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Northern Cape, and Limpopo. Over 12 million rand was appropriated for monitoring and verification of the implementation of the non-grid program in the next MTF. In the same period, 2017-18 financial year, the program has created over 12,000 jobs. This number is based on the report received from ESCOM and municipalities that reported on this program. Allow me, honorable members, to give more information of how the total electrification budget of 5.2 billion rand is allocated per province for this fiscal year, covering both municipalities and ESCOM supply areas. Eastern Cape, 1.2 billion rand. Free State, 175 million rand. Gauteng, 357 million rand. KwaZulu-Natal, 1.4 billion rand. Limpopo, 726 million rand. Mpumalanga, 442 million rand. Northern Cape, 284 million rand. Northwest, 367 million rand. And Western Cape, 242 million rand. The above will assist the department to connect about 200,000 households during the 2018-19 financial year. From 2014 to 2016, the renewable energy in South Africa was able to secure investment of 10.8 billion rand into renewable energy. With the recent signing of the independent power producer agreements, is now secured about 56 billion rand of investment in 27 new projects. These new projects are being lined up throughout the Republic of South Africa, with Eastern Cape benefiting about 4.8 billion rand, Free State 26 million rand, Mpumalanga 386 million rand, Northern Cape 13.5 billion rand, Northwest 1.3 billion rand, and Western Cape 803 million rand. The geographic spread of these projects per province indicate that the Eastern Cape will be having 4 onshore wind projects, Free State a hydro project, biomass project in Mpumalanga, the photovoltaic projects in Northwest, and offshore wind and solar photovoltaic projects in the Northern Cape, and 2 onshore wind projects in the Western Cape. Petroleum retail licensing. The licensing of a new to industry retail operations continues to create employment and contribute to economic growth. In the last year, 122 new petroleum retailing operations were licensed. During the construction of these licensed operations, over 6,000 jobs were sustained, and when in operation, at least 4,000 permanent jobs for forecourt attendants and retail shop cashiers and assistants were created. This is one sector that continues to grow, and it is important that the employment practices in this sector continue to support employment of South Africans. As part of our mandate to monitor the quality of fuel, sampling and testing of petroleum products across the country, 1,080 samples were tested within the following provinces: 100 in the Eastern Cape as well as in Free State, 170 in Gauteng, 115 KZN, 120 Limpopo, 124 Mpumalanga, 70 in Northern Cape, 116 in Northwest, and 130 in the Western Cape. In solar water heater program, in light of the strategic nature of the solar water heater program, the department has committed that the program will remain and that additional technical capacity will be sought from entities such as the Central Energy Fund. On energy efficiency and demand-side management, the department has also intensified efforts to close the regulatory gaps on energy efficiency measures, especially in finalizing the regulations on the amendment provision of mandatory data, as well as submitting the post-2015 National Energy Efficiency Strategy to Cabinet for consideration before the end of this financial year. Promulgation of the revised Integrated Energy Plan and Resource Plan. On the 8th of May this year, I committed before the Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly that will open the revised IEP and IRP for consultation with all key stakeholders to be approved by Cabinet by mid of November this year. The department is also currently hosting the BRICS Working Group on Energy Savings and Improvement of Energy Efficiency, which will be followed by the ministers' meeting of the BRICS before the end of this year. In pursuit of the Continental Economic Integration Agenda and to ensure facilitation of energy sector participation in SADC region, Africa and the rest of the world, in the bilateral and multilateral forums, the department will also host the SADC Energy Ministers meeting. Our focus of engagement for the coming period will further be on the areas of policy development, transformation, energy consumption, as well as strengthening and stabilizing energy cooperation and strategic partnerships and countries. On state-owned companies, reform of state-owned companies is one of the major themes that the President underlined in his State of the Nation address. The President stressed the need for our government to restore state-owned companies as drivers of economic growth and social development. All these companies of the state are a crucial part of achieving economic recovery, transformation, and promoting sustained economic development. Addressing also the department's own human capital challenge of developing as well as retaining a skilled workforce that is capable of designing, implementing, and overseeing our strategic programs, as well as finalizing pending legislation and policy issues, it is my top priority to ensure that in the next 3 months, we fill all critical vacant positions. I'll also like to take this opportunity, Chairperson, to acknowledge the role that is played by my own Deputy Minister for her support, guidance, and valuable contribution in the achievement of the department's strategic objectives. I look forward to us working together and strengthening our efforts in improving energy governance, stimulating economic growth, and transforming the energy sector. And also, the management of the department led by the DG and the entire executive management, the boards and executives of all the entities that report to the department, as well as Team Energy, for their hard work and commitment to the public service. In conclusion, Chairperson and honorable members, I wish to thank also my predecessors who laid the foundation for the department so that we can be able to move forward. I therefore commend this budget for your approval as the NCOP. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Honorable Member Hai.
Honorable House Chairperson, Honorable Minister of Energy, Honorable Gauteng, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Ambassador Machol, Honorable members of NCOP and special delegates, officials from the department and its entities, fellow South Africans. In 2018, as the African National Congress, we shall work to restore the confidence of South African people in a shared vision for radical social and economic transformation. We shall confront together the lack of broad-based economic participation and the social marginalization of millions of poor and landless people. This we shall do proceeding from the understanding that an equitable society is in the interest of all South Africans, whatever their race, gender, or social status. Drawing on the wisdom of Madiba and led by his example, we shall focus all our efforts on improving the lives of all South Africans, especially the poor. In this centenary year, we are celebrating the life and achievement of Bao Nelson Mandela and Mamu Albertina Sisulu, the icons of our nation. All NCOP budget policy debates give us the opportunity to evaluate whether we have done justice to oversee the mandate that has been given to the department, at the same time to ask ourselves, how are we contributing to transform South Africa into a more equitable, integrated, and just society, using the resources that are given to us through the respective budget votes. The policy development of the integrated energy plan was to provide a roadmap of the future energy landscape of the country, which guides future energy infrastructure investment and policy development. The draft IEP, which envisages to be finalized during the current financial year, is an overarching energy policy. This means that following its finalization, sector-specific plans to implement what is envisioned in the IEP must be developed. These plans include the integrated resource plan. The development of IEP is a continuous process as it needs to be reviewed periodically, taking into account changes in the macroeconomic environment, developments in new technology, and changes in national priorities and imperatives. The 8 key objectives of the integrated energy plan guide where resources over the period of the plan will be spent. These are security of supply, minimizing the cost of energy, growing the energy supply to support economic expansion, promoting the creation of jobs and localization, minimizing negative environmental impacts from the energy sector, promoting the conservation of water, diversification of supply sources and primary sources of energy, promoting energy efficiency, and increasing access to energy to ensure that energy is at the center of transforming our economy and accelerating the second radical phase of our transition. The January 2015 ANC NEC Lekgotla identified energy as one of the catalytic sectors that energy shortfalls were major binding constraints to higher economic growth and development. It was therefore logical that energy became part of government's 9-point plan to revitalize the economy, in particular resolving energy challenge. Integrated energy planning provides the best way to meet current and future energy services needs in the most efficient and socially beneficial manner, while maintaining control over economic costs. ANC strives to improve the lives of people of South Africa through various programs. The IEP takes into consideration the crucial roles that energy plays in the entire economy and is informed by an analysis based on solid facts. It is a multifaceted long-term energy framework with multiple objectives, and these include guiding the development of energy policies and the framework for regulations, guiding the selection of appropriate technologies to meet energy demand, guiding investment in and the development of energy infrastructure, and proposing alternative energy strategies. In December last year, the Energy Indaba took place. This tradition of the ANC that it consults, engages, debates, and presents superior argument and comes to decision on the balance of evidence will take the energy sector forward. The ANC has listened to stakeholders in the energy sector whom we want to contribute to the economic development of our country. A number of factors pose potential threats to energy security, including scarce and depleting energy resources, geopolitical instability, inadequate energy infrastructure, and natural disasters. To ensure continued security energy supply, it is essential that there is a coordinated and integrated approach to energy planning and coherent policy making. We have identified the role of each energy carrier, that is coal, renewables, nuclear, gas, hydroelectric, and liquid fuels. This energy mix allows South Africa to use all its endowments and energy resources. Energy is an integral input in production, and we need to ensure that we produce energy that will enable us as a country to be competitive locally, regionally, and globally. This will assist us to meet the energy challenges. Let us be clear about what the primary three challenges are. The first challenge is to ensure security of supply and affordability of energy for all. The second challenge is to meet rapidly rising demand for energy, especially in developing countries. And the third challenge is the need to increase energy supply in a globally carbon-constrained environment. Development of an energy sector-wide transformation charter in line with the revised codes of good practice as a driver for transformation across the sector is critical if the NDP commitments to dealing with inequality, poverty, high level of unemployment are to be realized. The threat of climate change, together with global developments in the renewable energy and nuclear energy technologies and other cleaner alternatives to traditional coal power stations, could see future of our energy mix being quite different from that of the past. With this in mind, over the last few years, various policies have been developed by the department in an effort to increase diversification of primary energy sources and reduce over-reliance on fossil fuels. In this regard, the government has established the Independent Power Producers Procurement Program, which has successfully designed, procured, monitored, and evaluated electrical energy infrastructure projects from the private sector. This is a demonstration that both private and public sector funds can contribute to the infrastructure investment. Meaningful transformation, however, still remains our immediate concern in this sector. The ANC will ensure that transformation will be implemented across the energy sector. Information on opportunities from the sector should be accessible to key stakeholders, and in particular, we should ensure that the small medium enterprises development program be empowered and become beneficiaries. There is a need for skills audit to be conducted and strategic plans developed to ensure that we have adequate skills required for the energy sector. The skills plan should be linked to the energy infrastructure development plan of the country to ensure that we focus on investing skills that will be absorbed and utilized by the energy sector. The department should work with the energy and water sectors to develop an energy skills plan for the country. Large infrastructure projects should have a social labor plan that will have a comprehensive skilled workforce plan that would include reskilling of labor and decommissioning of the infrastructure projects. The National Development Plan envisages a South Africa which, among others, has an adequate supply of energy to avoid disruption to economic activity, transport, and development. The National Development Plan proposes diversity by way of alternative energy resources and energy supply options, both in terms of power generation and in terms of power of supply of liquid fuels. In concluding, House Chairperson, we shall work to rekindle Madiba's vision of a democratic society in which all citizens have equal opportunity to determine their own destiny. We shall achieve this not only through strengthening the instrument of representative and participatory democracy, but also by ensuring that the people have economic opportunities and the ability to make choices about their own lives. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member Kayi. The Honorable Blanche.
Sorry, Chairperson, I was waiting for you to acknowledge me. Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Members, fellow South Africans, I really feel honored today to participate in this debate. Energy plays a critical role in the economy, but also to shape the future of this country. Without sustainable energy, Chairperson, South Africa has little chance of being an attractive investment destination to bring investors to our shores, creating jobs, fighting the massive unemployment crisis facing our country. We are at the crossroads for a while, Chairperson, and it's time that we should move away from this dangerous cliff. I am really encouraged today to see that Minister Gadebe is here, being one of the senior ministers in cabinet, well-experienced man, and Mr. Minister, I really want to wish you well to turn around the crisis that we are facing also in the energy sector. It is encouraging also from the department's own mandate to ensure, and I quote their mandate here, to ensure and secure and sustainable provisioning of energy, support of socio-economic development. It aims to achieve this by developing an integrated energy plan for the entire energy sector and regulating energy industries and promoting investment in accordance with the integrated resource plan for electricity. Chairperson, I hope really that, the question remains whether we can trust the department now. To put the money where their mouth is. And I was just wondering that the minister, mentioned, the drive, the investment drive that the president started. Apparently, he already negotiated to get, to get 25% of that allocation, and we're looking forward to that investment, Minister. Thank you. But in the meantime, looking at the 2018-19 budget research, you will pick up that the new budget allocation is a marked decrease in resource allocation. The electrification program declined by almost R1 billion from 6.2 billion in 2017-18 to 5.4 billion. This will in all likelihood have a negative effect on the rollout of electricity to rural areas and small towns. The department's goal of achieving universal access in formal household by 2025 will definitely be moved back yet again. And another target will most possibly also not be achieved. In addition, in its annual report, the Ratings Africa published the results of municipalities for their 2017 June report, revealed that the majority of municipalities are not financially sustainable. This will further jeopardize the rollout to areas most effective, since municipalities will not be capacitated to roll out electrification projects as required. Chairperson, the funding allocation to clean energy declined by almost half, from 742 million in 2017-18 to 370 million in 2018-19. DAMP Tandeka Udwaba recently raised the shocking poor performance of the solar water heater program with the minister. How is it possible that in the most important phase of the project, namely the installation of the central energy, the CEF, have proven themselves not being able to tackle a project like this? This is really worrying. I want to commend our minister for signing the long-awaited renewable energy power agreement. This is something that the DA has advocated for quite a while. And it will significantly influence the future. The minister might also mention some of the projects that is going to start, I hope, shortly. Minister Gadebe is one of the longest serving members in cabinet. I already mentioned that. And the minister worked with excellent leaders in the past. Unfortunately, like all the others, like ourselves, he also went through the dark stages of South Africa again, where people looted government funding for their own purposes. We hope, we have heard that the ANC has self-corrected. We really hope that it's not the case again that the leopard cannot change its spots. We really hope that the rotten apples is gone and that we can move forward to make sure that South Africans are going to get proper service. Minister, South Africans cannot afford this exorbitant petrol fuel prices anymore. They can't. All the increases that came are making it impossible for South Africans, especially the poor, to put a plate of food on their table. We will have to do something to ensure that people will be able to make a living. And I want to appeal to you, Mr. Minister, to make sure that this energy program, the whole process, is going to be aimed at improving the lives of our people. Mr. Minister, you are still left behind, like ourselves. You will still have to take responsibility for your department. You are still the one that will have to explain to people why you haven't changed their lives. That is part of your responsibilities. And I'm appealing to you, please, sir, we need to do something about this fuel prices. People cannot pay that anymore. As predicted, a person like Mr. JZ will move on. Whether to Dubai or to jail, I don't know at the moment. So once again, we call on you, Mr. Minister, to do the right thing.
Order,
The
honorable
DA
members, order.
promises, the DA promises, Minister, a new beginning, a total change, energy at affordable prices for all. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, honorable member. The honorable Koni.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We
Order, honorable members.
As the EFF, we want to welcome the decision by government not to continue with a nuclear deal that was going to be nothing but looting and corruption at the industrial scale. A strong message must go out to all political, administrative, and those in the private sector to say, we are not going to allow the opportunism because we need energy to industrialize, provide renewable, affordable, and reliable electricity, and give our people, especially the poor, pensioners, and people with vulnerability, electricity. The message must also go out to those who think the IEEPs are not going to be scrutinized, because we know of serious colluding that is taking place with multiple companies used to secure contracts, avoiding taxes using subsidiary in Netherlands and fronting to score BBE points. As the EFF, we also welcome the announcement by President Matamela Ramaphosa to initiate the process to review the size of cabinet and restructure some of the departments. In efforts to build state capacity, there is a need to realign the relationship between a department that is responsible for management of South Africa's energy sources and ESCOM. And that relationship cannot continue to exist at a distance, but it must be much more coordinated manner. Minister, in 2016, we wrote to the previous minister about communities in the Northwest, Eastern Cape and Limpopo provinces, demanding electricity for our people, and a promise was made. In Northwest, Wat 34 Nkaneng, Wat 22 Popomolefe informal settlement, Wat 19 Rockville and Wat 37 Sondela informal settlement do not have electricity. In Limpopo, people of Wat 24 Klitelani and Wat 22 Jerome and Wat 21 Jimmy Dlozi and Wat 31 in Hamuingwa do not have electricity. In Eastern Cape, I'm a national leader of the EFF. I have been to all 9 provinces
Honorable
in South
Goni,
Africa.
continue with the debate.
I'm a commissar. In Eastern Cape, people of Ward 29, phase 6 in Nkanduli village do not have electricity. Our people cannot continue to wait 24 years after democracy for electricity while politicians fight each other over tenders at ESCOM. The state must build capacity of scientists, engineers, artisans, and planners to develop its own renewable energy power stations instead of relying on private individual power producers. Renewable energy has a serial potential for industrialization, job creation, and environmental benefits, but these cannot be achieved if production of renewable energy is done for profit. We must transition from fossil fuel-powered sources of energy to renewables. This is not a choice, but we are moving fast to a world where the value of energy is not in resources, but the technology is the resource itself. But as long as the technology comes for the purpose of profit, our people will not benefit, and exploitation will continue. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member T. Majola. Deputy Minister.
Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister of Energy, Honorable members of the Select Committee on Economic and Business Development, members of the NCOP, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's really appropriate that we're meeting in this month, which is Africa Month, and the time to celebrate the legacy of the OAU that led the struggle for the liberation of this entire continent and made sure that we can celebrate as an integral part and not as an extension of this continent. It is also our Energy Month, and would like to ask you as our people's representatives to work with us in educating, informing, and popularizing the issues of energy efficiency and the need to save energy. We count on you, honorable members, as you are representatives of every corner of this country. However, for you to be able to do that, it is very important that you yourselves get informed, that you understand what is actually happening within the department. You are aware that the mandate of the department is to ensure access to secure, sustainable, accessible, and affordable energy. As per the NDP, we are on track to achieve this in spite of the reduction in the budget. During the last financial year, we delivered 292,700 connections, exceeding our target of 235,000. During this year, the electrification project of both grid and non-grid envisages over 200,000 household connections. Parallel to this, we are also addressing the challenges related to bulk infrastructure, such as rehabilitation and building of substations and transmission lines, especially in rural areas, so that it allows us to make sure that we can energize when we connect. Honorable members, when we don't have substations and lines, we can put all the reticulation, there shall not be electricity. It's important that you realize that. Provision of energy and electricity in particular is impacted by a number of factors that are, most of which are beyond the scope of the department. However, we try as far as possible to engender a system where we work in collaboration with other entities and departments so that all services are delivered to our people in a coordinated manner. The issue of availability of houses, the state of the houses or shelter, access roads have in some occasions forced us to redirect funds to other municipalities. However, we do not have the capacity or mandate to implement projects for municipalities and certainly don't have the capacity or authority to do so. We try to be proactive and assist municipalities who are struggling and who are without technical capacity through some interventions and assistance within the process of trying to make sure they can put together viable project proposals. During the 2017-18 financial year, I conducted a number of energy imbizos, doing walkabouts, interacting with our people, and some of these communities had interesting things to say. KwaZulu-Natal in Limpopo, the community reported they were very happy with the process of electrification. Their challenge was there were a lot of other settlements that were coming in which had not been declared, and this was leading to a lot of theft of electricity, which has a direct impact on themselves. In the Caleb Mutabi area, Go Free State, there's a huge problem with illegal connections, and children are sometimes the main victims who die from these illegal connections. Joe Slovo here in Cape Town, the community is very interested in the solar water geysers because they have seen what they've done and have requested training in manufacturing and servicing these geysers. So there is a lot of work that's going on, but we need you to work with us, honorable members. I believe that many of you are aware that the issue of technical, financial, and accounting capacity in municipalities has a major impact on the issue of delivery of services in general and especially in electricity. Municipalities are expected to issue requests for expressions of interest, follow up with requests for proposals that have to be written in a manner that ensures that the terms of reference are clear, that any contract entered into with a service provider has clear deliverables, timelines, penalty clauses, and consequences for non-performance, as well as a clear payment schedule that will be informed by clearly outlined deliverables with regular monitoring and technical oversight to ensure quality and compliance with technical standards. We know that a lot of our poorer municipalities don't have these skills and instead spend the little money available to secure services of engineers who are supposed to facilitate and therefore deplete these very little resources. As a temporary measure to address some of the electricity challenges raised by various communities, the department intends rolling out the non-grid as well in informal settlements as a stopgap measure. We have achieved a lot in terms of this program, but clearly there is a lot that we can do. I would like to conclude by saying that in order for us to ensure that we have an inclusive economy, it is very important that we put additional resources and skills in research and development so that we can enable innovation and localization. We cannot have radical economic transformation without the localization, without having an inclusive economy. We need to industrialize and grow our manufacturing. I would like to wish you all a very productive centenary celebration of our stalwarts, Utatu Nelson Mandela and Umama Albertina Sisulu, in the service of our people. Let me take this opportunity to assure you and the people of South Africa, honorable members, that Team Energy remains committed, as the Minister has said, to ensure secure, sustainable, accessible, and affordable energy for all. And you all know now that we have our brand new Minister who's going to make sure that we achieve that. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. I shall now call on the Honorable Mtetwa. Order, Honorable Koni.
House Chair, Minister and the Deputy Minister, our colleagues, yes. Energy is an integral part of the economy, and the energy sector is a key enabler for the attainment of national policy imperatives, such as those expressed in the National Development Plan and its supporting pillars, which includes, inter alia, the New Growth Path and the Industrial Policy Action Plan. It is therefore important that a mechanism is developed to enable energy policymakers to quantify and provide feedback on the extent to which the energy sector can contribute to the attainment of these and other national policy imperatives. This monitoring and evaluation function is better discharged by the Committee of Parliament through their oversight activities. The mandate of the Department of Energy is to ensure and secure and sustainable provision of energy for socio-economic development. The vision of the department is to foster and transform a sustainable energy sector which universally access to modern energy carriers for all by 2025. The department also envisaged improving the energy mix by having 30% clean energy by 2025. The work of the department is aligned with the vision of the National Development Plan, 5-year implementation plan, the medium-term strategic framework, 2014 to 2019. The strategic plan and annual performance plan of the department are in line to outcome 6 of the MTSF for outcome of governments, whose sub-outcome are outlined include the sub-outcome 1, regulation, funding and investment improve, sub-outcome 2, reliable generation, transmission and distribution of energy ensured. The overarching strategic direction of the energy provision in South Africa takes cue from the ready-to-govern policy document of the ANC, which postulates that economic development in both urban and rural areas should be streamlined to include the delivery of basic infrastructure to ensure delivery of frontline service such as water and electricity. This will culminate into realization of a viable and productive rural township and urban economics through manufacturing and industrialization activities with desirable outcome, including manifestation of job creation program and improved standard of living for all the people. The policy proposition held the launch of the National Electrification Program, which over the medium term receive a budget allocation of over 77% on average. This mostly funded program of the department is currently Program 4, Electrification and Energy Program and Project Management. Furthermore, the National Development Plan envisaged a South Africa which by 2030 will have adequate supply of electricity and liquid fuel to avoid disruptions to economic activity, transport, and welfare. The Integrated Energy Plan, EIP, acknowledges that energy prices are likely to be higher in future, but will still be competitive when compared with South Africa's major trading partners. In addition, the National Development Plan affirms that more than 90% of the population should enjoy access to electricity by 2030. The NDP proposes diversity by way of alternative energy resources and energy supply options in terms of both power generation and supply of liquid fuel. The IEP further explores the various energy supply options outlined in the NDP for both future electricity generation and liquid fuel supply, and makes firm recommendation in the form of an energy sector roadmap. The IEP is furthermore supportive of the overreaction aspiration required to support the economic growth scenario envisaged in the NDP through scenarios, the green shoots scenarios that is described later as characterized by economic growth and economic structure envisaged in NDP. These economic policy level exhibit a great sense of coherence in which the new growth path of 2011 NGP targets 300,000 additional direct jobs by 2020 through the greening of the economy, with 80,000 in manufacturing and the rest of construction, operations, and maintenance of new environmentally friendly infrastructure. The potential for job creation envisaged rise to well over 400,000 by 2030. The job creation potential of various energy supply options are estimated both for electricity generation and liquid fuel supply for creation of potential and specified, both in terms of temporary jobs and could be created during the construction of a new power plant or refined, as well as in terms of temporary jobs that would be required to ensure ongoing operation and maintenance of such plants. Developing a private sector participation framework in the energy sector in base load and renewable electricity generation, liquid fuel, and gas was noted as significant progress. The Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Program is now at Window 5 stage, or core generation contract have been renewed that retained about 8,000 megawatts supplied by the private sector. Good progress is noted with appreciation in terms of estimated 24,000 jobs created through private sector investment of 194 billion, which has been unlocked since the introduction of the REIPP. In addition, progress was also noted in ring-fencing the electricity distribution business of the 12th largest municipality in the country in a bid to resolve their infrastructure maintenance and refurbishment backlog. In this regard, approach to distribution assessed asset management framework was refined and implementation culminating in the development of a funding model. This work is attributed to the collaboration effort between Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency, MISA, and NASA, which include development of norms and standards for infrastructure management. The ANC support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mtetwa. We proceed to the Councillor G. Bosman.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Minister, it is indeed a distinct honor to address this distinguished House and to contribute to the debate on the energy budget speech presented by the Minister yesterday. Honorable Chairperson, on behalf of the National Executive Committee and the rest of the NCOP delegates of the South African Local Government Association and all of our members, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the Minister on his appointment as Minister of Energy. Honorable Jeff Radebe, we wish you well and we look forward to working with you as organized local government. Honorable members, a few weeks ago, in this House, Salga stated that the NCOP is the pinnacle of cooperative governance and the bulwark of our intergovernmental system, bringing together all arms of government. As the local sphere, we are at the coalface of development delivery, and we welcome the announcement of the Minister to fast-track promulgating the revised Integrated Energy Plan, the Integrated Resource Plan, the Liquid Fuel and Gas Master Plans, and we are ready to partake in this process. In our response to last year's budget, we were excited that the then Minister committed to establishing the long-awaited formal intergovernmental relations platform that will bring all of us under one roof to ensure that South Africa has a coherent regulatory system within the energy complex. Honourable members, we agree with the Minister as local government that the global energy sector is currently experiencing a major transition and disruption. There is a shift away from centralized energy generation and distribution monopolies to more disturbed and distributed, user-engaged, digitally integrated energy systems. The shift has the potential to radically alter the way in which the energy sector will function in the future. The transition in the energy sector is driven by a range of factors, such as increasing demands on networks, ranging from reliability and the accessibility perspective to technology advances, and the increased emphasis on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. These global drivers have resulted in several megatrends in the industry, which are acting as catalysts for change. And these megatrends can be summarized as follows: that the electricity distribution industry is experiencing the delinking of economic growth and electricity growth. Sales of electricity in municipalities have shown a sustained downward trend over the last years and have in some cases dropped quite significantly. These dynamics have radical implications for local municipalities that are compelled to redefine their role in the electricity value chain and to adapt their funding and operating models. The second megatrend is the growth of the renewable energy sector technologies and its reshaping of the energy systems across the globe. In South Africa, we rely on coal-fired power plants for 90% of our electricity generation. This trend suggests a critical shift in the dynamics, generating numerous risks and opportunities at all levels of the value chain. The redefinition of South Africa's electricity systems indeed commands the need to better understand the business models available to municipalities, to maximize benefits arising from this transformation, while also allowing us to mitigate the risks and balancing the trade-offs. South African municipalities need to seize arising opportunities and minimize potential risks associated with the introduction of renewable energy technologies in the domestic energy supply. Honourable Minister, there is an inherent risk flowing from what in general must be considered as a positive development. The growing numbers of business that are operating off the grid indicates an increase in consumption of clean energy, which is ideal if climate change mitigation mechanisms are to be adhered to. However, the lesser number of companies and residential settlements connected to the grid, the greater the chances of our municipalities becoming financially unviable. And this calls for us to find sustainable solutions to municipal revenue generation mechanisms. As part of the medium-term solutions, we remain convinced that there is a need to unbundle the role of Eskom within the energy value chain. Ours must be to invest in a reciprocal energy sector whose collective quest is to aid economic growth and reduce the financial burden on our citizens. Transforming the energy sector and ensuring the viability of both Eskom and municipalities must remain our national priority. In the same vein that Eskom's debt has a symbiotic relationship to that of the country, it must be understood that local government sustainability is also inherently linked to the country's sovereign stability. These matters and supply-side challenges from national utilities has an impact on the reliability and service provision, revenue collection, and financial viabilities of many of our municipalities. As SALGA, we are indeed more than keen to engage with the Honourable Minister on these matters, including the implementation of resolutions taken at the recent Energy Summit. These categorized into 5 themes are creating an enabling legislative environment, placing customers at the center of our focus, creating operational resilience across the board, finding new opportunities for development, and collaborative leadership in the energy space. Given the above context, we would like to challenge this House and the Minister to work with SALGA towards a fiscal review process. We all know that the current fiscal disaggregation model is not only unsustainable, but inherently defeats the grand vision to work towards development local government. Given this reality and considering the above context, the sufficiency of the 2 main trading services of municipalities, electricity and water, to provide surplus funds for municipalities have proven problematic. The increasing inability of the number of poorer municipalities to sustain services and to meet their debt demands to Eskom has related to these structural and systemic changes. In our previous contributions in these debates, we've identified a number of important challenges that as strategic partners we must address in order to ensure our country is able to provide reliable and dependable energy sources. Honourable members, cities constitute a significant part of our development. They make up spaces where our futures are influenced, where economic growth springs from the bustling activities of a multiplicity of social and economic players, and where our pressing environmental challenges are most evident, and indeed where huge energy consumption is located. It is within the above context that we therefore suggest that the success in transformation of the energy sector hinges on the significant contribution of the local government sector across the value chain. It is through their meaningful contribution that our country will ensure security of supply and to stabilize the ever-increasing price of electricity and energy, which would benefit the economy as a whole. Honourable members, as SALGA, we support the Minister's emphasis on the benefits of energy efficiency, because we all know that improved energy efficiency is the most cost-effective and readily available energy source. Energy efficiency projects reduce municipal operational budget, it enhances the competitiveness of our economies, it protects the environment, and it contributes to our efforts as a country as a whole to reach our reduction and climate change targets. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Councillor. The Honourable B.A. Shiva.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, Honourable Deputy Minister, members of the NCOP, Honourable Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen. South Africa's Integrated Resource Plan for Energy was drawn up in 2010 with a 9.6 gigawatt allocation for nuclear power was included in the draft. The plan was meant to be updated every 2 years following its inception, but no update has been promulgated since. In 2017, Honourable Chairperson, 7 years later, South Africa's controversial nuclear deal signed with Russia, Korea and the US, backed by former President Zuma, were found to be unlawful and unconstitutional by the Western Cape High Court. This case, brought against the government by anti-nuke campaigner Liz McDade and EarthLife Africa Director Mpumalanga, included expert reports which found that there was no need for nuclear power in South Africa. It has become blatantly evident to the people in South Africa that the unnecessary nuclear deal was being pushed by former President Zuma, along with a slew of 3 separate energy ministers in 2017 alone, to provide kickbacks to Zuma cronies within the ANC. And as Liz McDade stated, and I quote, "If nuclear is still there, it means state capture is still deeply embedded." This then begs the question, Minister, why is Deputy President David Mabuza currently in Russia meeting with President Vladimir Putin? Just yesterday, Honourable Chairperson, this minister, Minister Radebe, for the first time admitted to reporters that nuclear energy remained part of South Africa's energy mix, the extent to which is to be determined by policy. On the 15th of August this year, Minister Radebe will be presenting the new IRP to Cabinet, detailing South Africa's future energy mix for the next 20 years. If nuclear continues to prevail in the IRP, it will be a sure sign, Minister, that state capture under the ANC has not come to an end. It has merely changed precedents. And Minister, you will have a tough job to prove otherwise. Chairperson, let me remind this House that on 22nd of April 2016, the then Minister of Environmental Affairs, Edna Molewa, signed the Paris Agreement on Climate Change at the United Nations in New York. The agreement, a comprehensive framework to limit greenhouse gas emissions and to meet the associated challenges posed by climate change. This includes a shift towards green and renewable energy generation that is sustainable and backed by comprehensive energy policy. Yet, Chairperson, this department under the new Minister Radebe, have yet to provide any clarity on a renewable energy policy for South Africa, including guidelines for photovoltaic systems and the inclusion of independent photovoltaic energy generation into the public grid. Just 24 months after signing the Paris Agreement, it seems national government continues to neglect its commitments to tackling climate change, choosing rather to pursue corruption and kickbacks of a Russian nuclear deal. It seems that our national government has also chosen to deliberately exclude Saldanha Bay from the competitive bidding process of Phase 1 of the gas IPP process. In spite of the Western Cape government's 6 studies since 2012 in the environmental, economic and social implications of liquefied natural gas importation at this site. The Western Cape's proposal for energy cooperation clearly singles out that liquefied natural gas as a unique opportunity for importation into our province. The investment in LNG infrastructure alone could amount to 21 billion, with the potential to create over 67,000 jobs. So why has the Minister's Department excluded the Western Cape from this bidding process when our province is clearly energy ready and able? Chairperson, the South African National Energy Development Institute is still lobbying government for zero duties on electric vehicle imports to encourage the purchase and use of more environmentally friendly vehicles in the country. However, electric vehicles entering South Africa are charged a 25% import duty compared to 18% on conventional vehicles. But to add insult to injury, South Africa also charges an ad valorem tax, usually charged on luxury items over and above the already inflated imported tax for electric vehicles. This means that tax on electric vehicle imports into South Africa stands at an incredible 42%. Chairperson, South Africa must implement a short-term exemption of electric vehicles from import tariffs with the Department of Trade and Industry so that we can move with world trends going forward. The increase in electrical consumption from electric vehicles must come from renewable energy, which we know will require government permission for Eskom to procure green energy. Through the Chair, Minister Radebe, how is South Africa enacting any of the provisions outlined in the Paris Agreement if it has yet to reform its energy policies and relax regulation in favor of clean and renewable energy? The Western Cape government in 2016 embarked on an energy security game changer to stabilize electricity supply to the province and ensure enough power for future growth, which is sustainable and low carbon driven. The diversified mix includes a broad range of solar PV, electric vehicles, efficient water heaters, wheeling and energy trading, and the rollout of independent power producers. Eskom's previous failures have had a highly negative impact on the economy and investment, and so the provincial government has stepped in to mitigate these effects. Under the auspices of the Premier, a delivery unit and dedicated department teams, game changers such as these are a new vehicle of delivery with clear and measured outcomes, in partnership with the City of Cape Town and aligned with the NDP and the IRP. With a dedicated focus on future green economy, the Western Cape has highlighted the value of a key performance indicator in the green energy sphere to measure the province's carbon footprint and the game changer's contribution in reducing it. This monitoring and evaluation process measures the metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions avoided in the province when every new rooftop PV energy system is installed. The Western Cape is working with municipalities to enable solar PV users to feed electricity back into the grid. This includes the selling of excess energy by commercial IPPs by means of a wheeling mechanism and a fee paid to Eskom for the use of that network. This system opens up the energy market, attracts large investment in rooftop solar PV, and is low risk and carbon neutral, and can immensely be beneficial for rural or energy constrained municipalities. However, Chairperson, NERSA requires all municipalities to offer open grid access, but as yet, no wheeling framework has yet been developed. The Western Cape continues to assist municipalities to comply with the relevant small-scale embedded generation rules and policies. And by August last year, 30 municipalities in the Western Cape had a legal framework and NERSA-approved tariffs in place. Although these numbers are the highest in the country and demonstrate the strides made by the Western Cape towards a sustainable green energy, the IRP update in its current form fails to indicate where small-scale embedded generation fits in. This forces NERSA to refer all applications over 1 megawatt to the minister. This red tape, Minister Radebe, must be addressed as it has a direct consequence on discouraging investors. Honourable Chairperson, the Western Cape Government takes a lead role in setting to save money in electricity costs by putting solar PV on their rooftops in its government buildings across the city of Cape Town. And so far, with the Provincial Department of Transport and Public Works, 4 provincial buildings have had solar PV systems installed. Honourable Chairperson, South Africa does not need nuclear power. Any inclusion of nuclear in the revised IRP, we believe, is proof that corruption, as I've stated, still festers in the heart of national government and that unnecessary deals made are still being pushed through. The Western Cape is alternative and renewable energy ready. Our roadmap for sustainable energy generation has been laid out in the interests of a burgeoning green economy. We and the industry operate in complete policy uncertainty. The question should be asked again. Why is the minister keeping his options open to nuclear energy when renewable energy projects are well underway in the Western Cape and South Africa at large? Finally, through you, Chair, to the minister, you yourself have said that South Africa's economy has stagnated, and if it is to grow and attract significant infrastructure investments, it needs to have policy certainty. When will you deliver the confidence needed to grow the sector, and why is our national government failing to adhere to the requirements as set out in the Paris Agreement? Because, Chairperson, if a nuclear deal is still on the cards, then it appears national government is still stuck in a complete corruption knot. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Member Faber.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. As a permanent delegate representing the Northern Cape Province, I applaud Minister Radebe for signing the Renewable Energy Power Agreements. This gives a much larger portion of the budget towards the Northern Cape Province for development of solar and wind energy and creating jobs that is so much needed in our Northern Cape Province. It was published in the Labour Force Survey that 29.5% of the Northern Cape Province population, a staggering 134,000 people, are unemployed. We are still concerned that the job creation figures in the departmental budget is inflated, and these jobs will only last until the completion of these projects' construction lasts. These most probably won't be sustainable jobs. Further concerns in this department include the vast budget cuts while we need our economy to grow. With the Integrated Resource Plan, the Zuma cabinet tried to push through the Rosatom nuclear deal, but it was declared unconstitutional and unlawful, as we heard, by the High Court. Since then, it became known to us that President Ramaphosa sent his deputy David Mabuza to Russia, with love from Russia. Was this to mend the nuclear deal that was stopped in its tracks? Are you scheming behind closed doors, trying to put a nuclear deal together again with Russia? Tell South Africa, Minister, today. As we know, we don't need more nuclear, as there will be enough energy if we focus on the renewable projects as planned. We would also like to know what happened to the Grand Inga project. When will it happen? How far? As I'm here for the last 9 years, we're hearing about this in committees. Honorable Makue, long before you were here, actually. This is why we want to know why, Minister, and the department also, we will see fuel prices going up every month. And it's happening again, as you know, next month. And as you know, this means prices of food and living expenses will be rising as well. And this is, Minister, why we now want to know why the department allowed to sell the rolling fuel stock so far below market prices. Another type of Gupta Gate scandal. And yes, Honorable Makue, I know you're going to talk about it. It's sub judice, I know. But as we learned through the ANC history, their leaders get off scot-free without accountability and no need to pay back. We look towards the new minister to see if he can turn this bus around and gain the much-needed respect and credibility from our South Africans. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Faba. The Honorable Member Makua.
Honorable House Chair, the Honorable Minister Khadebe, the Honorable Deputy Minister Majola, our leadership from the provincial legislatures, our delegate leader from Salga. It's important that we just clarify what the aim of the Department of Energy is. And I quote from the APT. It's to formulate energy policies, regulatory frameworks, and legislation, and to oversee their implementation to ensure energy security, promotion of environmentally friendly energy carriers, and access to affordable and reliable energy for all South Africans. The Minister was quite clear when he helped us to sleep easier tonight by saying that there will be no power shortages this winter. My contribution to this budget debate, honorable members, will be divided into 3 different subcategories. The first is to talk about progress made in delivering reliable energy to the people of South Africa. Energy is power. And power is a vital source for social economic development. As a democratic government, we are obligated to ensure that power benefits the people and that the power belongs to the people. The energy sources and sources of our country must contribute to alleviate the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. In this regard, commendable progress has been made in intergovernment cooperation and will be further pursued in the coming financial year. I thought to myself, when I was in matric, did I have electricity? For those who had electricity then, know that we black people did not have it. Only last week, during Local Government Week, SALGA, the South African Local Government Association, shared with us how cooperation with other spheres of government will be implemented. And we were part of that meeting. Also, on Monday, Minister Davis of the DTI, and yesterday, Minister Gordhan of Public Enterprises gave further examples of such intergovernment relations. And I will talk about Minister Davis later. But, Chairperson, the list goes on of such cooperation. This is in line with the ANC's strategy and commitment that together we can do more. Together we can move South Africa forward. Together, the Premier of Gauteng today, an ANC leader, and the Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, a DA member, are visiting the Sophia Town constituency where I have been deployed to serve the people of this country. As part of a Tirisano campaign. If you were here earlier, you would have heard that I am at a topic where I'm talking about intergovernmental cooperation. We are walking the talk. Our renowned ANC leader, Ntate Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, taught us that when you have reached the top of the mountain and you look around you, you will notice that there are very many other mountains to climb. There are some of us who are still struggling at the bottom of the cliff. They have not yet reached that stage of political maturity and development where we can see the biggest picture. Our select committee visited and were astonished by electrification infrastructure programs in the Northern Cape, in Mpumalanga, and also here in the Western Cape. In its program 4, the Department of Energy indicates that it will do more on electrification infrastructure, industry confirmation, community upliftment programs and projects. The Department of Energy will, in this year, produce 4 quarterly reports on additional households electrified with non-grid electrification towards the 2018-19 target of 200,000 in the National Electrification Plan, as mentioned by the Deputy Minister Majola. And you know what, honorable members? The Select Committee will watch the Department of Education to make sure that we get an insight in that report. We are not here to throw stones. We are here to serve our people. The ANC's historic 54th National Conference, where the new dawn was born, accepted the importance of an energy mix. Some people don't understand because they're preoccupied with a racial mix. We're talking about an energy mix. In our commitment to do what we say, the Department of Education shall draft a renewable technology roadmap and complete such during the financial year. New technologies on the 4th Industrial Revolution, honorable member from Salga, shall inform this draft. My second point is regulation of the energy industry. I see I have little time, Chairperson. I'll jump to my third point, which is promoting investment in line with the integrated resource plan for electricity. Minister Rob Davis, that I mentioned earlier, of the Department of Trade and Industry, in launching the 10th iteration of the Industrial Policy Action Plan on Monday, the 14th of May, said, and I quote, "In 2012, government introduced the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Procurement Program. Commitments by IPPs amounted to 67.1 billion, or 45% of the total project value of 147.6 billion for all the bid windows. Actual local content spending, where construction has already started, amounted to 38.1 billion. What happens when we construct these things? We create jobs. We alleviate inequality, and we deal with the challenges of poverty. There is also, Minister Rob Davis says, an important policy lesson which arises from this process. A failure, and he admits it, until recently, to sign off on the latest round of the RIPP, with the result that demand tailed off significantly, led to the closure of some of the component manufacturing companies which had been set up on the back of the RIPP program. The representative, the chairperson from the Western Cape, doesn't mention that to us. That is happening with a factory here in the Western Cape. We are concerned as national government about these job losses. Minister Davis concludes by saying that this underlines the absolute necessity of policy coherence and continuity in government's industrial policy across departments. And that is happening in this new dawn. In its program 2 of the energy policy and planning, the Department of Education commits to improve energy security. Chairperson allows me, as I conclude, to say, Honorable Schaefer, I would want to beg you, please, read the APP and the budget of this department. Do not come and be disingenuous and stand here at the podium and talk about things that are already addressed in the budget proposal that was presented, as we are a people's government, quite openly to all members, and Honorable Faber was there when it was presented in the Select Committee. And you would know that if it was not for the nuclear generation that is happening here in the Western Cape, we would be sitting in the dark right now. Don't be hypocrites and use the electricity in your municipalities and even in the legislature and come here and pretend that you are totally abhorred by the use of nuclear energy. Nuclear energy also has its advantages. But the program of this department is quite clear that we are looking at an energy mix. The Honorable Faber, you are becoming like a gramophone, and I've said it before. In the Select Committee meeting, you raised the question about the Great Inga, and you were given a response on that. And then you come here again and raise the same old story about the rolling fuel stock, where a very clear answer was given to you in the Select Committee by the Director of the Department of Energy.
Honorable Makua.
It does not help for the DA to continue to refer us back to our history. We are looking forward at the brighter future
your time has
of people. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and all the members of the NCOP who have made inputs into this. So little time I have here. I think the member, Makua, has responded to many of the issues that have been raised here, for which I do appreciate, having appreciated all those who commented. Just a few issues. It is our intention to ensure that we support transformation in the energy sector. So the issues that the Honorable High raised on radical economic transformation are still at the heart of our approach, even on the IPP, as we continue to monitor them, that they must be able to respond to the challenges of South Africans. On the issue of the skills plan with CETA, we're going to take your advice and counsel on that one to work with them more closely so that we can be able to be part of the skills revolution in our country. On the issue of budget cuts, this does not only affect the Department of Energy, it is a collective cabinet decision that we need to ensure that the fiscal consolidation, as enunciated by the Minister of Finance in various budget speeches, as well as in the medium-term budget policy statement, we have to live by our own decision so that we can be able to strengthen the fiscus of the Republic of South Africa. So as a Minister of Energy, even though as a line function, I'm unhappy about the budget cuts, but if you look at the bigger picture, it is for a good cause. On the issue of SALGA, I do appreciate the comments that we have made. We will endeavor to ensure that we work with you much more closely so that we can be able to ensure that all the challenges that the municipalities in particular are facing, we can be able to address. On the issue of ESCOM, I'm sure you might be aware that the President has established an IMC that deals with the restructuring and reform of state-owned companies. So I would suppose that you can be able to input on that one. On the last point, DA, nuclear is not a swear word. We are at the cutting edge in terms of providing nuclear medicine as South Africa. Ephelindaba lab. We supply 51% of the world. I'm shocked that you can say South Africa does not need nuclear. Right here in Quebec, almost 3,000 megawatts of electricity is generated through nuclear. So are you telling the people of Western Cape that we must shut down these? You are wrong. On IPPs, there's remarkable progress on IPPs from 2014 to 2016, 10.8 billion US dollars of investment. And recently I signed 56 billion rand on IPPs on renewables, ensuring that we are in line. Inga, it has already been agreed to. You are wrong. The IRP will ensure that the energy mix, but we cannot preempt that. So you will be part of the consultation as we go on public. With those few words, I'd like to thank all colleagues for this debate on budget.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Khadebe. Order, honorable members. I want to take this opportunity and thank the Honorable Minister Khadebe and the Deputy Minister Majola for availing themselves for this debate in our house today. And to the honorable members, I want to applaud you today because you pleased the public. Compared to yesterday, that concludes the debate, the business of the day, honorable members. And I am going to request the honorable members to remain standing up until the procession left the house. The house is adjourned.